Well, good evening, everyone. It's 5:30, so we'll make a start today. Welcome to today's planning meeting of the 15th of September 2025. I'd love to welcome members of the public, councillors and officers to this meeting and online. So I'm going to call upon the clerk, Teresa Buckley, who will advise how the meeting will run this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Please note that we're live streaming this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel to encourage more people to engage in our public meetings. The proceeds of the meetings will also be recorded. Please can I remind everyone to use their microphones when speaking and turn them off when finished. Please can attendees in person refrain from watching the live stream as this will cause interference for our viewers. Please also ensure that your mobile phones and iPads are turned to silent. We are not expecting a fire alarm testing today. In the event of evacuation, please leave by the nearest exit and gather in the car park next to the library opposite Tesco. Should members of the public need to use the facilities, they are located through the doors to the right of security. In accordance with the Constitution, members of the public who have registered to speak will be permitted to do so when invited by the Chair. I have confirmed those entitled to speak. Please note that registered speakers are not permitted to approach committee members or distribute documentation to the committee during the course of this meeting. Each application will be dealt with in the following order. The Planning Officer will present the submitted application and will outline the proposed recommendation in full. Any speakers registered to speak on the application will then be invited to address the committee in the following order. Speakers against, Neighbourhood Forum representatives, any councillors who are not a member of the committee, followed by speakers in support. All speakers will have a maximum of 5 minutes to address the application. Note we are taking two applications together. This will then be followed by questions from members and responses from the Planning Officer. Once questions from the committee have concluded, the Chair will open the application for debate. At the conclusion of the debate, the Chair will ask a proposer and seconder for the application. This proposal must be in full and include all information such as conditions or reasons. The Chair will then confirm with the Planning Officer if they wish to enter into a period of summing up. Members, if at any point you have to leave the meeting for any reason during consideration of application, you will not be able to vote on that application. I will now hand back the chairing of the meeting to the Chair, Councillor Brooke. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Teresa, any apologies or updates to the membership of the committee, please?
No, Chairman, everyone is present as expected.
Thank you. Moving on to the minutes. To confirm a correct record of the minutes of our meeting held on the 18th of August 2025, can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Tolchild to propose, Councillor Pentley to second. All those in favour? Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Moving on to usual declarations of interest. First of all, planning committee members, do any of you have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest on any of the items today? Please raise your hand. Excellent. Then officers, as usual, ask any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests on any of the items today. Excellent, thank you. Urgent items, any urgent items?
No, Chairman, there's no urgent items today.
Thank you very much. Well, that moves us straight into one of the first items of today. This is item 5. It's considering an application for 11 Alta Vista Road in Paignton and planning reference numbers P/2025/0253. The clerk has confirmed those who have registered to speak upon entry to the meeting, so I'm now going to ask Emily Elliott to introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. The application before you is for the demolition of the existing dwelling, garage and outbuildings and the construction of 10 dwellings plus associated access, parking, infrastructure, landscaping and associated works. It should be noted that this application is part retrospective. The first plan before you is the site location plan, and just to point out to you where we've been today. So the application site is outlined in red. It's number 11. It's a corner plot on the corner of Alta Vista Road, which runs along and to the left-hand side of the screen, and Rowland Gardens that runs along the frontage of the application site. Here's an aerial overview of the application site. So the application site is located on the eastern side of Alta Vista Road, where the pointer is here. And the site, the site levels prior to any works taking place were relatively level. However, as noted today, we can see that they have implemented their previous planning permission, and there are levels of excavation to the rear of the existing dwelling. The site is adjacent to the Random and Paignton Harbour Conservation Area, which is on the opposite side to the application site. So the boundary runs somewhat here, where the laser marker is running along the screen. The site is located within Flood Zone 1 and the Torbay wide critical drainage area. The site is also within the 8-kilometre zone of influence for the Berry Head to Sharkham Point component of the South Ham Special Area of Conservation. As already mentioned, the works have commenced in accordance with the extant planning permission by means of the new access from Alta Vista Road, which we saw today. The former swimming pool has been removed and excavation has taken place. There are residential properties to the north, east and west of the application site. So we saw Highcliffe Mews, we stood on this side of the road earlier today, and then we saw the properties to the rear of the application site, and we walked along to the neighbouring property known as Westcliff. The plan before you is the existing layout. As you can see, there is a vehicular access, which my pointer is now pointing to. And there is also a pedestrian access, which is to the top left-hand corner over here. And then below it is the new access that has been put in to implement the previous planning permission. As we saw from today as well, there's also a cock and hen stone wall with brick pillars running along the application site. So that is what the boundary is along here. Before you are the existing elevations. The existing site is occupied by a large 2-storey detached dwelling that has a pitched roof and is finished in a mixture of render, brick and hanging tiles. And you'll note there are openings across all the elevations at ground and first floor. That's the existing floor plans, the ground floor and then the first floor plan. The house has been vacant for some time. And then before you are the existing elevations. This slide shows the existing pool house to the left-hand side. When we were on site today by the gates for the vehicular entrance, we could see that beyond in the far corner on the right-hand side. And then on the right hand of this page is the existing detached double garage, which was next to the property. Here's the existing street scene. So today on our site visit, we stood approximately where my marker is now, Highcliffe Mews, which is flatted development, the application site, and then moving on is the detached garage, the existing vehicular entrance point, Westcliff and properties beyond. Before you now is the proposed layout. The proposal includes the demolition of the existing dwelling, garage and outbuilding at 11 Alta Vista Road and the construction of 10 dwellings plus associated access, parking, infrastructure, landscaping, associated works. As already mentioned, the application is part retrospective and the proposal will include the construction of 6 4-bedroom townhouse dwellings. So this is to the frontage. These will be visible from Goodrington Sands and from Youngs Park. And there will be 4 2-bedroom coach-style dwellings to the rear. So they're plots 7 to 10. A new vehicular access and pedestrian access point is proposed from Alta Vista Road, while the existing access from Random Gardens will be maintained for plot 6, as you can see to the bottom of the screen. These are the proposed elevations for the townhouse. So this is the south and the north, the front and the rear of those dwelling houses. So the 6 units, you can see plots 1 and 6 have got projecting balconies to either side. And the balconies for plots 2 to 5 will include inset balconies. The proposed townhouses will have 3 storeys and will include, and will already include balconies. The proposed north elevation has been carefully designed to ensure that future occupiers of the townhouses do not detrimentally impose on the privacy of the future occupiers of the coach houses. This was pointed out on site, so this is running from their ground floor level, where my laser is now, to the first floor. And then the second floor will have slightly larger openings. To the bottom of this elevation, you'll see the openings. This is for bicycle and bin storage, and then in front of this will be the parking for the proposed dwellings. It should be noted that the proposed 6 townhouses would have the following approximate measurements. They'd be 35.9 metres in width, excluding the balconies. With the balconies included, that would be 38.6 metres. They'd have a depth of 12.2 metres and a ranging height of 11.5 to 12.7 metres, given the topography of the land. The higher height would be when viewing the proposed townhouses from the parking court rather than the frontage off Random Gardens. Here are the proposed elevations for the sides of plot 6 and plot 1. The proposed east elevation would oppose the west elevation of Westcliff, and the proposed west elevation would oppose Highcliffe Mews and other properties on the opposite side of Alta Vista Road. The east elevation would be largely screened by mature vegetation that is within the neighbouring property's ownership, and the proposed materials reflect the site's coastal location as well as providing a contemporary design. There's an overview of the proposed floor plans. So we've got the ground floor and the first floor. And there's the second floor plan of the townhouses, noting the balconies. And then we move on to the proposed elevations for the coach houses. So this is the south and the north elevations. So again, we'd see the south elevation when looking into the site from the new access point on Alta Vista Road. You can see that they lend themselves to the topography and they're staggered in height. And the side elevations of the coach house are the east and western elevations. Again, plot 7 would be somewhat visible when travelling along Alta Vista Road. In terms of the proposed floor plan, so you can see at ground floor, it would be parking facilities for plots 7 to 10 within the ground floor, which would also include bin storage and bicycle storage. It would then allow access through stairs up into the first floor, and they would all be 2-bedroom units. And then the proposed street scene. So this slide shows the proposed arrangement of the townhouses in relation to Highcliffe Mews and Westcliff. And then as shown on site, I think this is a very helpful slide. So this shows the comparison. So the red outline on these drawings is the existing dwelling house. So that's the main prominent block running along now with my laser. And then over to the right-hand side is the existing detached double garage. The blue outline shows the extent of the extant planning permission for the flatted development with 10 units in there. So that's the principal elevation that you would see from Random Gardens, Goodwinton Sands, etc. And below is the rear of those townhouses, again showing that the proposal is maintaining the height that's already been previously approved. It should be noted that the proposed development is wider than the previously approved scheme. To the west of the plot, the built form is extended by the inclusion of projecting balconies, and to the east of the plot, such would be sited closer to Westcliff. And then we've now got the other comparison street scenes. Again, the red denotes the existing dwelling and the blue shows the extant permission. In terms, it shows that the proposed townhouses are not as deep within the plot as the previously approved scheme, such as to ensure that the proposed coach houses have a suitable outlook and natural light levels. The proposed coach houses do not exceed the height of the existing pool house. And this current slide shows a site section through the site in relation to adjacent neighbours to the rear of the site. I've just provided a couple of Google Street View images and site photographs. So this is what we saw today on Random Gardens. And then this was taken a little while ago of the excavation to the rear of the property, and the pool house is to the top left. The existing dwelling is on the right hand side. And then again, this is taken from directly behind the house looking down Alta Vista Road, and the new access point is where the laser pointer is now. And then just one from the frontage as well. In terms of key issues and material considerations, it should be noted that 19 letters of objection have been received, the concerns of which are detailed within the committee report. In terms of the principle of development, the site benefits from an extant planning permission which was implemented previously. Such included the creation of a new access onto Alta Vista Road and the removal of the land to the north of the existing dwelling, including the removal of the former swimming pool. The Council's Principal Policy and Project Planner has confirmed that the principle of redevelopment has been established. The officer has suggested that the site may be capable of achieving more than 10 dwellings. However, given the site area, the proposal appears to be a reasonable density. The most recently reported housing land supply for the Council is 1.72 years. The proposal would assist at boosting the Council's housing land supply, albeit for 10 units. The presumption in favour of sustainable development applies, and it's considered that the proposal does not breach either limb of paragraph 11D, and therefore the provision of housing weighs heavily in favour of the proposal. In terms of design and visual impact, including the impact upon heritage assets, the site is in a visually prominent, highly elevated location on a corner plot where Alta Vista Road meets Roundham Gardens. Roundham Gardens is characterised by large detached two-storey dwellings, whilst the opposing western side of Alta Vista Road in the Roundham and Paignton Harbour Conservation Area is 3 to 4 storeys, as shown by the flatted apartment block. The application site is directly adjacent to Roundham and Paignton Harbour Conservation Area. Objectors have raised concerns regarding the impact on the local area, the proposal not being in keeping with the area, it being an overdevelopment of the site, having a negative impact on the conservation area, and concerns were raised regarding the design scale and visual impact of the proposal. The proposal seeks to maintain a similar positioning as per the extant planning permission, but has widened the width but decreased the depth. The proposed townhouses would front Roundham Gardens, providing an active frontage, whereas the proposed coach-style house dwellings would be located behind the townhouses, providing a lower scale transition towards the northern boundary. The general design approach appears to be acceptable for this location and is considered to be a betterment to the extant planning permission. The southern elevation of the townhouses presents a development which is more in keeping with the coastal location than the extant planning permission, and as such is welcomed. The proposed coach houses are staggered to respond to the topography and to assist in breaking up the massing, which has been demonstrated effectively. Given the siting scale and design of the proposal, it is considered that the proposal would not result in unacceptable harm to the character or visual amenities of the locality, subject to the planning conditions recommended at the end of the committee report. As the site is adjacent to Roundham and Paignton Harbour Conservation Area, the application is supported by a heritage statement, which the Council's Principal Historic Environment Officer has concluded that the proposed development would preserve the character and appearance of the Roundham and Paignton Harbour Conservation Area, and it would overall have a neutral impact on its significance as a designated heritage asset. In terms of residential amenity, the proposed dwellings are considered to provide a good quality internal environment for future occupiers in terms of internal floor space, and all habitable rooms are served with adequate light and outlook. The proposal provides some opportunities for outdoor amenity space. However, the site is within close proximity to several public open spaces, so the deficit is considered to be acceptable. Objectors have raised concerns regarding loss of light, noise, privacy overlooking, and having a negative impact on residential amenity. In terms of impact on adjacent neighbours, the proposed residential use aligns with the residential uses nearby, and it would not result in any undue noise or general disturbance. The committee report provides an analysis of the proposed development in relation to adjacent neighbouring properties. Planning conditions are recommended at the end of the committee report to protect the amenity of adjacent neighbours, including boundary treatments, obscure glazing and privacy screens to prevent intervisibility overlooking issues. Subject to the recommended planning conditions and given its scale, siting and design, it's considered the proposal would not result in any detrimental harm to the amenities of the occupants of neighbouring buildings. In terms of highways movements and parking, a new vehicle and pedestrian access point is proposed from Alta Vista Road, while the existing access from Roundham Gardens will be maintained as a secondary access. Alta Vista Road and Roundham Gardens are subject to 30-mile-an-hour speed limits, and neither are classified roads. The proposed development seeks to provide 21 parking spaces, 19 of which are allocated, and the remaining 2 are for visitors. There would be a deficit of 1 parking space for plot 10, however the Highway Authority has not raised a concern regarding the level of parking provision and is satisfied with the accessibility of such. The proposal provides 2 cycle storage spaces per dwelling, which is also policy compliant. The Highway Authority is satisfied that the proposed development would not have a severe impact on the highway network capacity. The new vehicular access from Alta Vista Road will serve 9 of the residential units, whilst the existing access on Roundham Gardens will serve 1. The proposal shows a 4.8 metre wide access with a gradient of 1 in 20 leading towards the far end of the driveway, which is considered acceptable to the Highway Authority. Planning conditions are recommended at the end of the committee report to secure highways matters, including a road management and maintenance plan. In terms of waste, storage is provided within each dwelling's curtilage and collection will be via a private waste collector. Again, planning conditions are recommended to secure such at the end of the committee report. In terms of ecology, biodiversity and trees, the application is supported by an ecological impact assessment which has been reviewed by Devon County Council's principal ecologist. The site is approximately 200 metres from the Lime Bay and Torbay Special Area of Conservation. The site is within the 8 kilometre zone of influence of the Berry Head to Sharpen Point component of the South Ham Special Area of Conservation. The proposal does not lead to a direct increase in activity likely to impact upon the designated features of the Lime Bay and Torbay Special Area of Conservation, but to ensure waterborne pollutants do not affect such, a planning condition is recommended. The site offers features suitable for commuting and foraging bats. Therefore, an external lighting planning condition is recommended. Emergent surveys found that the pool house is used as an occasional night roost by the lesser horseshoe bats. With the proposed demolition of such, it will result in the bat roost being permanently destroyed. However, a night roost has been provided in advance of the demolition of the pool house. Proposed mitigation includes an application for the licence from Natural England. The relevant tests have been undertaken and are outlined in the committee report. A planning condition is recommended in relation to vegetation clearance to protect nested birds. Through the extant planning permission, the mitigation payment of £135 per additional residential unit has been secured to mitigate the impact of increased visitor pressure on the calcareous grasslands at Berry Head. A unilateral undertaking is recommended to secure such. In terms of biodiversity net gain, the application is deemed exempt as it is part retrospective. Such has been confirmed by Devon County Council's principal ecologist. In terms of trees, the Council's senior tree officer has recommended a planning condition to secure the soft landscaping. The committee report recommends several planning conditions relating to ecology, as well as the officer recommendation being subject to securing a unilateral undertaking. In terms of flood risk and drainage, the application site sits within flood zone 1 and the Torbay-wide critical drainage areas designated by the Environment Agency. The Council's drainage engineer has reviewed the submission and has confirmed that due to site constraints and likely ground conditions, a controlled discharge off-site would be considered acceptable. A planning condition is recommended to secure the surface water drainage. In terms of low carbon development and climate change, the application has been supported by an energy and sustainability statement, which has been reviewed, subject to the recommended planning conditions contained within the committee report, such as considered to be acceptable. And in terms of designing out crime, the application has been supported by a crime prevention statement, which the police designing out crime officer has reviewed. A planning condition is also recommended within the committee report to secure such to prevent crime and the fear of crime. Therefore, the officer recommendation is approval subject to the completion of the unilateral undertaking, the planning conditions outlined within the committee report, with the final drafting of the planning conditions delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency, the resolution of any new material considerations that may come to light following planning committee to be delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency, including the addition of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. If members of planning committee are minded to refuse the application against the officer recommendation, final draftings of the reasons will be delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency and in consultation with the chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Elliott, for your report and, as usual, your comprehensive coverage of the details in question. I'm now going to call upon Amy Roberts. Ms Roberts is going to address the committee in support of the application. Ms Roberts, you have 5 minutes. The clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining.
Good afternoon, members and officers. I would like to highlight the key merits of the scheme, the process the applicant has followed and the support of consultees. The development is acceptable in principle, officers agree. The principle is established by there being an extant planning permission for the site for 10 dwellings and local plan policies SS12 and H1, which deal with housing provision and applications for new homes. This is an urban, brownfield, residential site in a sustainable location and within an area that is residential in character. It must be noted that this application is submitted at a time when Torbay Council has a serious shortfall in its housing land supply. The supply is reported to be far below the 5-year supply that's required, at just 1.72 years. More housing is very much needed, and this development, with a net gain of 9 dwellings, would make a meaningful contribution to the supply and could be delivered quickly. This must be given significant weight in the planning balance. It's recommended at the national and local levels that applicants engage with local planning authorities on draft proposals prior to the submission of applications, and our client has done exactly that. The final proposals that are before you today reflect the advice that has been received and incorporate officers' recommendations, particularly to do with siting and parking. This is a well thought out scheme that has not been rushed, and the application is supported by a robust pack of technical reports that cover all of the officers' requests for information. The applicant is a local developer with a very good reputation for delivering high quality development, and the old Cockington school site is a recent example. The proposals for Alta Vista Road have been through a thorough, detailed design evolution process and have been designed to a high quality to enhance the local area. You've hopefully read the detailed design and access statement produced by Labras Architecture and Planning, which sets out all the feasibility work that has informed the final design. Your principal historic environment officer has reviewed the details and is happy that the development would preserve the character and appearance of the nearby conservation area and is better than the extant planning permission. Layout and the amount of development were discussed in detail with officers at the pre-app stage. The layout ensures efficient use of a brownfield site and an urban site, but without overdoing it. Your principal policy planner supports the application and raised that the site may actually be capable of achieving more than 10 dwellings, highlighting the importance of maximising the number of dwellings achieved. But ensuring a good level of amenity for both future and neighbouring residents has always been an important consideration, and the detailed feasibility work informed us that the proposed density and siting are appropriate for this site. The design's been informed by detailed analysis on daylight, sunlight and shading and indivisibility to minimise any potential for overlooking both between the townhouses and the coach houses and the neighbours. And you'll note in the list of conditions that plot 6, which is the easternmost townhouse, would have obscure glazing on the eastern elevation and on the eastern side of the balcony. The height of the houses would not exceed the height of the approved 10 dwelling scheme, and officers are satisfied that the townhouses are of a size and scale appropriate to the site's setting. A lot of thought has been given to access, parking and servicing, and the Highways Authority has no objections. 21 on-site parking spaces are proposed, including visitor parking, and the Highways Authority is satisfied that this accords with local plan guidance. There's also provision for cycle parking and electric vehicle charging. Waste would be collected by a private company, Biffa, and Biffa's confirmed that it has capacity to service the site. Drainage has been another important consideration. The strategy is to drain the water at a controlled discharged rate to the combined sewer system. All the details have been checked by Torbay Council's engineering service manager, and he has no objections. There is a condition to ensure that the drainage system is implemented fully prior to the occupation of the development and maintained at all times thereafter.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Planning law dictates that applications should be determined in accordance with the development plan. The conclusion reached by us and your officers is that the proposed development is in accordance with the development plan. The application should therefore be approved. Ultimately, this is much needed, sustainable development that would boost the supply of housing at a time where Torbay is suffering from a significant shortfall. A redevelopment of 10 dwellings has already been approved on the site, and the planning permission is extant, so this site is going to be developed. The plans that are before you now show a more efficient use of the site, and we and your officers consider the proposals to be betterment to the extant planning permission. In light of all the points that we have made and the positive conclusions reached by officers and consultees in their detailed assessment of the proposals, we ask members to endorse your officers' recommendation and approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. So, committee members, we come to that point when I invite questions to the planning officer. May I remind you that questions should only cover matters not raised in the presentation. So, anybody want to ask any questions, please? Councillor Fox.
Thank you. Thank you for the debate, for the presentations so far. In view of the location of the property in question within the conservation area, or next to the conservation area, not within it, sorry, next to the conservation area, I just wonder, could I have the officer's view on its relationship to Highcliffe Mews, please?
So Highcliffe Mews is within the Roundham and Paignton Harbour Conservation Area, and in terms of the proposed development in relation to that property, as you'd see from the proposed street scenes, the siting and scale of such would not negatively impact that property.
Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Ms Elliott for a very comprehensive report on the first of the two applications this evening. There's another one that comes later, clearly. My question is related to the privacy screens that we've heard about on the townhouse, referred to as number 6. We've got a privacy screen on the elevation fronting the neighbour. Can we bring up a landscape plan just to show that we don't need a privacy screen on the rear of that, to make sure that we can't, from that balcony, look backwards towards the openings of the windows of the adjacent neighbour? I'd just like to be assured on that, please, if that's possible. Is there a landscape plan that's got the adjacent neighbour and...
As in Westcliff to
yes.
the... that shows part of Westcliff here, so this grey box. The other plans, no, that's probably the closest you're going to have. But the balcony, if you're meaning where it would sit here, the views would be back within the site, not to Westcliff.
And as we're looking at that landscape plan, the balcony is towards the front of the townhouse.
Yeah, so it's there.
So there is, would there be, in your view, the opportunity to look backwards into the principal rooms of the adjacent neighbour if the hedge wasn't there, from the rear of the balcony looking backwards?
So the hedge is within the neighbour's ownership as well, that should be noted, so the applicant can't control that vegetation. What you saw on site today was Westcliff at first floor level has a first floor terrace that predominantly looks towards the sea, but also does lend itself looking towards the application site. In terms of you're saying if there was a privacy screen put here, I don't think that would be necessary given the siting of the application site and that within the plot.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I've just got a couple. Just wanted to check on the. How do I phrase this? In a construction management plan, when you're dealing with ins and outs, demolition, etc., I'm used to a list that comes to it. I noticed there was an XXS in one of the conditions. Just clarify that a little bit more. And one of the issues I find with other developments around the bay is the issue of mud and wheel washing, etc. That then causes quite a lot of inconvenience to neighbours whilst the demolition construction is happening.
Yeah. So in terms of pre-commencement conditions, which normally a construction management plan or method statement would be, as this is part retrospective, the applicant has provided the information up front. So there was an initial document which has subsequently been revised and is at consultation with the relevant consultees. And once they're satisfied, that condition, the way it's worded at the moment, the plan reference and the dates missing, just to make sure that the final document, obviously we have the relevant reference and date in then, it will be a compliance condition, not a condition that requires, it won't specifically state how you normally see wheel washing, construction hours, because all that's already contained within the document.
Thank you. And when we were on site, looking at the coach houses, there were a couple of strips to either end, and then there was the back end. Can you clarify the control and access and maintenance of those areas, please?
Yeah, so I've just popped the plan up. So there would be a strip to the rear, which at present I think the boundary condition or additional condition needs to be included for the management and maintenance to the rear of these coach houses, because there's nothing stopping either the end plots of the coach houses going round to the rear where there are windows relating to the second bedrooms of each coach house. So if members are minded to go with the officer recommendation, I would recommend including something to make sure the management and is for management and maintenance purposes only.
Thank you. Councillor Tolchild.
Thank you. Just going back, actually, Councillor Billings raised the balcony relating to plot 6, and can you just clarify for me again, because the proposal is wider than the extant planning permission, so the windows on the end of plot 6, can you just clarify that they are going to be glazed windows to prevent possibility of overlooking Westcliff, please?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, so I've recommended 2 conditions in particular relating to plot 6, condition 21 and 22. 21 is for the obscure glazing to the first floor open living space and the second floor ensuite window in the eastern flank of plot 6 to be obscurely glazed. And then condition 22 is in relation to the privacy screens, that 1.8 metre high obscure glazed privacy screens or to a similar standard shall be erected on plot 6's balconies, eastern sides, and shall be maintained and retained as such for the lifetime of the development. So then if the vegetation from the neighbouring property is removed or decreased in height, then their privacy is still maintained.
Much thanks for clarifying that. Thank you.
Councillor Billings.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Ms Elliott, to hark on about these balconies. Are we able to see whether there's a landscape plan that shows those balconies from above, to see whether that balcony wraps round the corner or whether it's 2 separate balconies, one to one side, one to the other? I was unable to tell from the elevation drawings. Is that the best?
That plan hopefully should help you. So it wraps around. They are almost L-shaped, so you can see. Hold on, let me just put the laser on.
Thank you. That does. That helps enormously.
So on plot 6, which is the one of question, it wraps around there, and then at second floor it wraps around again. So it is not 2 separate balconies. Well, it's 2. It's 1 on each level, but not 2 per floor.
Thank you.
Any further questions? As usual, I'm going to just open it up for debate now, colleagues. Councillor Strang.
Looking at this development versus the original substantive development, I think the massing of it looks far nicer. I think the overall site layout is nicer. So I would be fully in support of this application.
Councillor Billings.
I entirely agree with what Councillor Strang's just said. The developer's fallback position is P 2019-0893 as referred to in the officer report, which is also for a 3-storey development, also for 10 units. In my personal view, what we have before us looks far more aesthetically pleasing than in that fallback position development. It introduces more bulk form, but the way it's presented, I think, looks more visually pleasing, particularly if you were looking at it from the Roundham Gardens side. It appears in that elevation treatment to be broken up, reading as separate elements rather than one, in my view, largely slab-fronted block with a pitched roof. So I think this is an improvement. it's also providing larger accommodation on site, which is helpful because it provides more choice for occupiers. So whilst I've read very carefully and considered the public comments, many of those which are cautious about a 3-storey development, many of which are cautious about multiple units on this site, I'd highlight that those 2 points have already been agreed in the consent previously granted, and what we're here to look at is to see whether this development is a better or a development than the previous one, and to see whether this development is allowable. In my view, it is an improvement, and in my view, there's no reason to refuse this. I do have some thoughts about privacy of neighbours. We can come to that in due course. I think we need to consider the access strip towards the back of the coach houses and ensure that there's no overlooking potential there. I still have some unresolved queries in relation to these balconies, but overall I strongly support this. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fox.
I'd just like to agree with my colleagues. I think that the fallback position, which obviously could be developed, would be a retrograde step in relation to what is now being proposed. In relation to privacy, it seems to me that the existing hedge is extremely, I want to put this, well developed hedge. It's a thick hedge, it's a robust hedge, and it's within the control of the neighbours. So I think we've got a situation where we've got a securing of necessary privacy between the 2 neighbours anyway. I suppose I'm questioning whether in fact we do need to introduce sort of glazing at all, bearing in mind you've got such a strong natural physical presence between the 2 properties, and I say one which is within the control of the next door neighbour, but I'm very much in support of it in principle. Thank you.
Anybody else? I mean, chuck my 2 pennies worth in as I want to do. I see this, colleagues, not just a marked improvement on the previous scheme, but also it's been a derelict site for ages. And if this scheme is deliverable, and I noted Ms Roberts' comment, which I've now circled, delivered quickly, you know, the word quickly. I mean, at the end of the day, we've had planning permission and work on this for decades, it seems. So if this is a scheme that can actually be deliverable, because we want more housing in the Bay, that's for certain, then it's not just a marked improvement on the past, but it gets rid of a derelict site and gets something done quickly. So I'm very keen to support this, I must say. I'm mindful, though, what Councillor Fox said about the privacy screening. I'm wondering if we take the objections of our residents seriously, you know, but are we going a bit too belt and braces here? You know, I noted the hedge is very well kept. It's, you know, how did Councillor Fox put it? It's a good hedge, it's a very good hedge, it's a big hedge. You know, there's a lot about the hedge. But it is in the control, actually, of the property that we're talking about next to it. So that's a little question I've got for members. Do we need that in the conditions? I've mentioned about the construction management plan, and so I'm happy with that. And I think there's an extra condition that's been talked about for the strip that Councillor Billings has raised. Anything? So we need to go to an actual proposal.
As everybody seems to be in agreement on this, I'd like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendations obviously with a possible addition of the condition on the strip around the back of the coach houses.
I'll need a seconder of that as well.
I'm quite happy to second, Chair, but I do think we need to formalise some language in relation to that access strip. I think not only do we need clarity about the way that access will be provided to it and under what circumstances, but also by whom, because we are reliant on that to, or that the limitation of access is one of the ways of giving privacy to the neighbours backing onto it. We also, it wasn't clear to me on site looking at the plans, and in particular, if you just give me a moment, Chair, I can refer to it more properly. It wasn't clear to me looking at drawing 167 PAP04, whether on the bottom right hand side of that drawing where we see the proposed coach houses, whether what appears to be the boundary structure shown is the existing wall or a new wall or a fence. And so I think we need that to be cleared up through the conditions. So in relation to that, the condition on boundary treatment, we need the word height in there, I think, just to provide clarity. And then we need another condition dealing with access to this maintenance strip. The wording of same, I think I'd be happy to delegate to officers. I think, respectfully, Chair, I do think we need the condition in relation to the privacy screen, as per the officer's report. I'm quite happy to have a discussion with members, but personally I would have gone further and put that privacy screen wrapped round to the rear of those balconies on Unit 6, not just the side. I think the impact on the proposed unit would be very modest, and I think it would give surety to the adjacent neighbour. Everyone, when they're stood on that balcony, is going to be logically looking out towards the sea, not back into the site. And if that helped give comfort to the adjacent neighbour, then I think that's better than reliance on a hedge, personally. That would be my suggestion, and throw those open to members. Please shout me down, members, if you think contrary.
Well, I'm excuse me, I'm okay with that. Mike, Councillor Fox.
I'm just sort of wary of sort of over-prescribing. It seems to me an over-engineered solution, but I'm supportive in principle. I just think the hedge is sufficiently tall and thick and robust to guarantee privacy and have control by the neighbours. But there we go.
Councillor Pannier.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to perhaps echo Councillor Fox, I'm always kind of wary of, in planning committee, kind of almost adding things. You know, if that was something we felt strongly about, we should have had a stronger, longer debate on that subject. I think just adding things in, it seems slightly arbitrary, given what Councillor Fox said about the existing hedge. That said, I won't die in a ditch over it. I'll still support, but that's just my 2 cents. As a committee, I don't think it's good form that we just kind of add on these things. It's good enough as it is, and it's slightly arbitrary to just chuck in these conditions at this stage. But like I said, I won't die in a ditch if the overwhelming feeling of the committee is more in accordance with yours, Councillor Billings.
I think all I'm conscious of, Councillor, is one of the balconies is at the 3rd floor level, and reliance on a hedge to provide screening to a 3rd floor level. I appreciate the hedge is currently robust, but if it were to become diseased, clearly the time period to grow a 3-storey high hedge would take some time. Not, in my view, going to be material to the applicant, and yet could be material to the neighbour. And recognising community feelings on this, I've read lots of in various public comments. I didn't think this was being unrealistic. That's in relation to the balconies. I think in the bit behind the coach houses, I think we discussed on site as committee members, that we needed to get clarity on that. And I think a mechanism of providing that clarity is that element of, through the existing condition, including the word height, to make it clear whether what we're seeing on the plans is an existing or a new, which it's not clear to me because it's not annotated. And also in relation to how the access is provided, because if it's referred to as an access strip, if everyone's got a key to it, everyone can just go round there as per usual to enter the back of the houses, or it's not quite clear to me that's what's intended. So both of those points, where the developers have a different view on, could easily be challenged at a later date, wouldn't be material. They could still get on and continue the build of their application. Be a relatively minor application that could be resolved, clearly well professionally advised, as we've heard from earlier tonight. That's all. Thanks, Chair.
Well, I've got to bring this to a point. So, Councillor Billings, the proposal's been through Councillor Strang. Councillor Billings is seconding. We got an amendment to one of the conditions with the word height. We got a second extra condition. I mean, we got an extra condition on access and whom. So I think I'm just going to bring that now to a vote, if you're in agreement with that. So those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, councillors, for that. Thereby confirm that the application has been approved. Yeah. I'm just going to call a 5-minute break so we can get ready for the next two items which have been merged into one, but we'll have an individual vote. Thank you. Just going to call back the meeting now. So we're going to move on to items 6 and 7, and we're putting them together, as you will see. This is to consider applications for the Pannier Market, Union Square, Market Street, Torquay, and the planning reference is P/2025/0164, and Union Square Shopping Centre and Pannier Market, Union Square, Torquay, planning reference P/2025/0173. I'm going to take the presentation speakers for both items together, but we have to remember to vote separately on the recommendations. The clerk has confirmed those who have registered to speak upon entry to the meeting, and therefore ask Miss Elliott to introduce the applications. Thank you, Miss Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. There are quite a few member updates, so apologies for these. At the top of the slides, there are a couple of member update slides. I have written the application it refers to, so P/2025/0173 relates to the major planning application, and P/2025/0164 relates to the listed building consent. So in terms of the first slide, the member update for the major application is that one additional letter of objection has been received. Concerns that have not previously been raised include the loss of light. There's a typographical error on page 128 of the committee report where it states 990 residential units instead of 99 residential units. And there's on page 131 a revision is needed to the sentence stating, the original sentence states, the proposal will deliver a new NHS facility in a sustainable and accessible location. This needs to be revised to say, it is envisaged that the proposal will provide an NHS facility in a sustainable and accessible location. With regards to page 136, a revision to the third bullet point to include the highlighted text, so block C, the existing Union Square multi-storey car park, MSCP will maintain existing 451 car parking spaces and provide up to, that's the additional bit there, up to 4 new commercial units across the ground and first floors within the former Union Square Shopping Centre floor space. There's a typographical error on page 136. Within the brackets of the third paragraph, Torquay Harbour should be included when referring to the conservation areas. And in terms of an update with the Natural England are yet to provide a consultation response to the appropriate assessment Devon County Council have submitted on our behalf. There's a further update to the major planning application. So there's a revision to the statement on human rights and equalities issues on page 151 of the committee report. The additional text is in yellow. I'll read that just for members. While it is acknowledged that planning decisions may affect the rights of individuals, in this case, any interference is considered to be justified, proportionate and necessary in pursuit of the legitimate aims of planning policy and the wider public interest. The proposed redevelopment of a complex town centre site such as Union Square Shopping Centre has the potential to affect the amenity of residents living in nearby residential properties, particularly in relation to issues such as noise, traffic, privacy and general disturbance during both the construction and operational phases. Likewise, consideration has also been given to the impact of the affected businesses and surrounding businesses, and this is being weighed up as part of the proportional and balanced consideration in the application. Any adverse effects have been appropriately considered and addressed within the report. Where necessary, mitigation measures and planning conditions are proposed in order to secure any potential adverse impacts to an acceptable level. As such, the application is not considered to raise any unacceptable human rights implications. The next slide is also a member update relating again to the major planning application, the revision to the statement on human rights and equalities issue on page 151. Again, the additional text is in yellow. I'll read this out. This town centre regeneration proposal has the potential to impact a wide cross-section of the community, including individuals with protected characteristics such as age, disability, race and gender. As part of the planning assessment, consideration has been given to the accessibility and inclusivity of the proposed development and opportunities for local employment which contribute to social inclusion. The application is accompanied by an economic and social impact assessment which provides details of contribution to social value and inclusion. The development will provide new areas of public realm and publicly accessible pedestrian routes which will be used by a wide demographic. These have been considered through the design development and is considered to be appropriate response to inclusive access. Where appropriate, planning conditions are proposed to secure inclusive design standards, including adhering to secure by design principles and ensure compliance with relevant policies and guidance. In conclusion, it is considered that the proposed development has been designed and assessed in a way that aligns with the aims of the Equality Act 2010, and due regard has been given to the potential impacts on individuals or groups with protected characteristics. The last member update slide, I promise. This relates to the listed building consent, so P/2025/0164. A consultation response has been received by the Victorian Society dated the 11th of September 2025, which outlines, "Thank you for consulting us on the above application and the resubmission of additional details. Whilst the applicant has now more clearly demonstrated the public benefit to this scheme, the Society agrees that there is a need to regenerate the Pannier market, and to do so would prove a positive benefit. The current schedule of planning documents demonstrates an ambitious plan that is not yet fully realised. Namely, there are logistics to this design that have not been appropriately considered, especially when the proposed will result in the entire loss of the original 19th century fabric from the south and west elevations. These details ought to be well established in the proposal before the level of harm and risk can be proportionately considered. These losses will most likely result in a moderate to high level of less than substantial harm to the significance of the building. In the first instance, we recommend that the applicant undertake some investigative work to verify the viability of the existing historic fabric, as well as a detailed outline of these features and how they will be retained and conserved in the scheme. For example, could some of the architectural details on these elevations be reincorporated into the proposed? If your authority should be minded that demolition is deemed essential, we recommend that all features be subject to a building recording to ensure what is lost is amply recorded." Now moving on to the main presentation. So the slide before you is the site location plan. Just to recap, there are two applications before you. The major planning application is for the partial demolition of the existing shopping centre, demolition of 9 commercial units fronting Union Street and Market Street, and the partial demolition of modern additions attached to the Pannier Market. The application seeks the redevelopment of the site to provide residential development with associated amenity space, the creation of a new Class E commercial unit, the repurposing of retained shopping centre floor space sited below the multi-storey car park for Class E uses, and associated external alterations and works to the Pannier Market, the creation of a public square and associated development infrastructure and works. Then there is a listed building consent application for the demolition and associated works to adjoining structures to south and west elevations of the Pannier Market, including the removal of internal fixtures, the formation of arched openings and a new emergency escape doors to the south and west elevations. The site comprises of several elements, including the Union Square shopping centre and several commercial units fronting Union Street. I will just pop the laser pen on again. So Union Street, I'm highlighting it with my marker now, and then we go around the corner and we go up Market Street. In terms of outlines, there's the market itself, the building, and then we've got the multi-storey car park to the rear of the site, and then within is all built form of the existing shopping centre and other commercial units. Several retailers remain operating within the shopping centre, including Greggs, Iceland, Peacock's, Specsavers and The Entertainer. The shopping centre can be accessed by pedestrians on both Union Street and Market Street, with the service access being provided from Castle Lane next to the Union Square multi-storey car park access lane from a raised deck level at first floor. The site includes the Union Square multi-storey car park, which provides long-stay pay and display parking, 7:30 a.m. till 7 p.m, and has many parking spaces, including 16 disabled parking spaces, 9 parent and child parking spaces, and 2 motorcycle parking spaces. The site includes existing retail buildings fronting onto Union Street and turning the corner onto Market Street, which are currently occupied by many different retailers, including Costa Coffee and Nationwide Building Society. The site extends along Market Street and includes the Pannier Market, which is a Grade 2 listed building. Now moving to the aerial, and as I mentioned to you today, which we couldn't quite see when we stood here on our site visit, but where the laser is now is where we look into the entrance into the Union Square shopping centre, and then above at a higher level attached is actually this parking level deck, which I mentioned to you, and then beyond is the Union Square multi-storey car park, which is accessed from Castle Road and Castle Lane. The site is located within several designations. It's within the Torquay Town Centre, the Torquay Primary Shopping Area, the Torquay Town Centre Community Investment Area, the Torquay Strategic Delivery Area. It's adjacent to several conservation areas, the Upton Conservation Area, Abbey Road Conservation Area, Torquay Harbour Conservation Area and the Warburys Conservation Area. It's at high risk from surface water flooding, and the majority of the site is within flood zone 1, with a section of the site being within flood zone 3. The site is also within the Torbay wide critical drainage area. This is an existing layout. It shows the current occupiers as well as the last occupiers where the units now remain vacant. So previously, this large one to the rear is obviously the Wilco's one, which has been vacant for a couple of years. That covers the ground and first floor, which obviously the proposal looks to kind of repurpose. And then in terms of when we were on Union Street earlier today, so everything below Stavers will be demolished, going down to the edge, which is then the Nationwide on the corner down here. So Specsavers is the first unit up on Union Street here. This is an existing street scene, so the top is Union Street, so we stood approximately here on the opposite side of the road looking at it. Specsavers, and then further down we've got Costa and Nationwide. The works is also within there, and then the bottom plan is the elevational drawing of Market Street, so we can mainly see the Pannier Market, and below that is the casino slots. Some existing elevations showing the shopping centre, so this is within the canopy once we go under that undercover place area that we saw today, where we stopped first of all to look at the site. And the existing elevations of the multi-storey car park, which you can see obviously the shopping centre is somewhat amalgamated into the lower floors of such. The existing elevations of the Pannier Market, and you can see that the structures are attached to the south and western elevations, so they are fully covered here. And then here is where the existing parking deck is on top, what we could see from the aerial imagery, and that whole rear elevation, the western elevation, is almost consumed by existing built form. In terms of floor plans, I thought it'd be useful to show you the existing floor plans of the Pannier Market. So this is the ground floor, and you can see all the partition walls and things that provide the commercial units that operate within there, as well as other facilities, toilets, etc. And the first floor plan, again showing the partition walls. This is the proposed demolition layout plan. The plan shows the extent of the proposed works, including the removal of the Union Square shopping centre and the units below and wrapping around the corner of Union Street onto Market Street. And then in terms of the proposal, so the committee report refers, as the applicant has, to 4 blocks A, B, C and D. Block A is the main residential, so this almost L-shaped building here. This would contain the majority of the residential development, and it would have a ground floor commercial unit too, which I'm roughly circling with my laser now. Block B would be the Muse style, which would contain 14 residential units. Block C would be the existing multi-storey car park with the ground and first floor being repurposed, maintaining its Class E use, but being potentially used for the NHS in the future. And Block D would be the Grade 2 listed Pannier Market. We also have on this plan the public open space, providing permeability through the site for pedestrians and cyclists. This would provide an area for social interaction and cohesion. There would be a Muse Street, as the applicant terms it, running, so the access, you go through this point and then you would pop out onto Albert Road and go along Market Street either way. And then these other landscape spaces here would be for the use of blocks A and B, the residential occupiers. You can also see other little landscaped areas adjacent to the Muse style Block B, and then again within a pocket along the frontage of Union Street for Block A. So before you are the proposed elevations for Block A. I've tried to hopefully show, the very top bit is kind of a layout of where these elevational drawings are taken. So this is the principal elevation, so the main front elevation for Block A. So this is what you would see when travelling along Union Street. The entrance point would be approximately here, and then you'd have bin and bicycle storage facilities. The majority of the windows you can see before you, with the exception of this unit here. The rest are residential, but this one that the laser's currently on is for the new proposed commercial unit. This would be the flip side of that block, so this would be as if we had our backs to the multi-storey car park looking towards Block A. Beyond is Union Street. You would see again the residential units and the side view of the new commercial unit. And then moving on to the top elevation, so this would be as if you're stood within the new public square space and looking at the entrance to the new ground floor commercial unit within Block A. And these are the other elevations for Block A. As you can see, hopefully from these top drawings, this one here and this one here, there is obviously several elevations to this building. It's not a simple building. And then in terms of Block B, so this is a Muse style, this would provide 14 units. It would run parallel to the Pannier market, which will create a route between the two blocks of built form. As I've mentioned, the applicant terms it as the Muse Street, enabling pedestrians and cycles to move through the site. This top elevation would be what actually is opposite the Pannier market, and then within the private amenity space, the large triangular shape, this would be the frontage access points for Block B. Moving on to the proposed elevations for Block C, which is the existing multi-storey car park. This shows the proposed external works, and the proposed changes are to the ground and first floors. So mainly this elevation is probably the most prominent. This will be what will, as you're travelling into the site from the public square, you're going between the Pannier market and the Muse style. Ahead of you will roughly be that second image down. And then the proposed elevations for the Pannier market, also known as Block D. The proposed works will enable the buildings to become a freestanding building, as the extensions to the south and western elevations will be demolished. All elevations which have existing painted areas of stonework are to be repainted in white. No areas of stonework that are currently unpainted will be painted or otherwise treated. On the southern elevation, there will be the creation of 2 arched openings placed centrally in either gable and 2 single fire escape doors, so you can see that here. So this is the elevation when you're approaching from being lower down Union Street. So you're coming up Torquay Town towards the town hall, and the application site would be on your right hand side. This would be the opening entrance feature for the Pannier market. And then when you're walking in that new Muse Street between the Muse style Block B and Block D, the elevation that's currently completely or almost consumed by built form, here's some new openings as well as a new fire escape door too. So in terms of, apologies, I've kind of gone off piste. So the west elevation, the existing ground floor openings will be infilled, and there will be the creation of 5 arched window openings and 1 single fire escape. In terms of floor plans, this is the proposed floor plan for Block A, so the main residential, and you can see down here, this is the commercial unit in blue. And up in the top corner is the yellow area, so that's like services for the residential block, bins, bicycle storage, facilities such as that. Moving on, we've got the first and second floor plans. There has been a revision to the scheme from when it was originally submitted. It did come in for 102 units, which was reduced down to 99. As mentioned on site today, there is kind of like a light well area created within the new block. But given the concerns raised in terms of daylight and sunlight, it was considered more appropriate to reduce the number of units and ensure that the outlook was both from Union Street and then for the less used habitable rooms to be to the rear. And that's echoed across the floors. And they're the remaining floors. Before you is now Block B, so the ground floor plan. As I've mentioned, there's 7 units on the ground floor and 7 units on the first floor. There's the first floor. And then the proposed floor plans for Block C, so that's the former Wilco's area. And then the first floor of the multi-storey car park. The remaining floors of the multi-storey car park remain untouched by the proposal. And then the proposed floor plans for Block D. So the ground floor will see the removal of modern retail units, including stud partitions, ceilings, doors and unit frontages, as well as a modern staircase and a glazed lift enclosure on the southern elevation. At first floor, there will be the removal of partitions to modern units along the west side of the building and modern partitions to the east of the building, removal of the modern suspended ceiling. No works to the roof are proposed at present, and it's understood that from the underside of the roof covering, which is a modern replacement, it's currently covered with insulating foam. The existing mezzanine structure is to be retained at this stage, and the installation of 2 new fire escape staircases and lifts. And as I mentioned today, there is an existing cafe when we walked up Market Street that's on the left-hand side of the Pannier Market, that as you can see from these floor plans and the existing, there is a clear separation between how users access this space, and they must enter and exit off Market Street and then go in either off Market Street or Albert Road to then get into the remainder. That division will remain with the proposals, and the staircases have been carefully thought through so that they don't intercept in or affect the proposed new openings. In terms of proposed landscaping, due to the urban nature of the site, the proposed landscaping would enhance the site and will help soften and fragment the built environment. There's a pocket of landscaping, as I've already mentioned, to the frontage of Block A, so that's where my laser pen is pointing now. A large external amenity space to the rear of Block A, and it's sandwiched between Block A and Block B here. And then there will be a public open square space for the enjoyment of the public, providing permeability and a place for meeting on the corner, so approximately where Nationwide and other occupiers currently are. The proposed street scene, so the top image is Union Street, so it shows how it will attach on to the existing Savers unit, so then Block A is in front of you. Behind, slightly faded out, is the existing multi-storey car park, so a much more dominant, taller building than Block A. And then moving down Union Street, we get to the public open space and the Pannier Market to the rear. And the bottom image is showing the public open space, glimpses of Block A with then the Pannier Market sitting proudly in front as a standalone building, going up the road on Market Street, and you can see behind the existing terrace properties the multi-storey car park. I provided a proposed section showing Block A in relation to the Pannier Market and the car park, as well as the rock face. So it's a complex site, and as I mentioned to you, when the demolition happens, more of the rock face adjacent to the site and alongside the car park will become on show and will be visibly present. And another section through the site showing the Muse-style Block B buildings in relation to Block A, and then we've got the multi-storey car park at the edge of it here. I thought it'd be useful to show you some CGIs. So this is when you're travelling down Union Street, so we're heading downtown towards the harbour, and the application site's on the left-hand side. So we've got the entrance point, and we've then got the service facilities further to the left, the residential above and beyond, a boundary treatment running along to provide a defensible space, and then the commercial unit is right on the very end that you can just about see, and the public open space. And then we moved earlier on today towards the vacant former River Island unit. This would kind of be the view you would have from there. We were slightly further down than when the CGI is taken, but you can see the permeability through the site, the commercial ground floor unit, the residential above. Block B somewhat appears, but slightly obscured by the landscaping, and then the Pannier Market with its new openings on this elevation. A further CGI showing the bird's eye view. This is the one I had on site earlier. So again, we've got Block A, the L shape here, the Muse style here. So between Block A and B, we've got 99 units, that additional commercial space, although we have lost them for the multi-storey car park. We've got, the shopping centre. We've got the existing multi-storey car park behind with the new repurposed floors, the ground and first floor, and the Pannier market. And I've taken a couple of Google Street View images for those that were unable to attend, and I think a couple of my site photos are in there. So this is along Union Street. So Savers would remain, but then from thereafter the rest down to the corner would be demolished. This is on the corner, so the current nationwide site where the corner turns going up Market Street. One from looking at Market Street, looking up towards the Grade 2 listed building. So again, all of this built form would be demolished, and then as you saw there would be new openings on this elevation of the market. A Google Globe view, so you can see how prominent the car park is, much larger, much taller than the existing built form below it. So we've got the Town Hall up here where we currently are today, and then going down Union Street and up and around Market Street. And the application site is approximately where I'm outlining here. A couple of site photos. So this is the existing Union Square shopping centre, so you can see there's unfortunately some vacant units and some units that remain. One of the market. A couple of the internals of the market, unfortunately we couldn't go inside today as it was closed. And this is what I was saying about that higher level parking that you can't see from Union Street, but you can see this upper level when you're actually within the multi-storey car park. You've gone quite high up and then you're looking back down on the application site. This is the Pannier market here, and I think there was a question asked about whether it was openings and things on top of the roof. So you can see there is plant and there is vents, and there are kind of some openings along the Pannier market already. The following slides, I'm going to do the major planning application first, so that ends 0173. So I'm going to go through the key issues and material considerations for the major, and then I'm going to go to 0164, the listed building consent, and then when I come to the officer recommendation, I'll do the same there too, as you need to make two separate decisions. So in terms of the key issues and material considerations for P/2025/0173, the major planning application, the principle of development, the proposal is for the partial demolition of the existing Union Square shopping centre, the demolition of 9 commercial units fronting Union Street and Market Street, and the partial demolition of modern additions to the Pannier market. The proposal is for the redevelopment of the application site to provide residential development, 99 units, with associated amenity space, the creation of a new Class E commercial unit, the repurposing of the retained shopping centre floor space sited below the multi-storey car park, the ground and first floor that Wilco's were formerly in, and the associated external alterations and works to the Pannier market, the creation of a public square and associated development infrastructure and works. The proposal involves the formation of 99 units, which includes a mixture of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. The site is a critical regeneration opportunity in the heart of Torquay town centre. Given the most recent housing delivery test and the council's housing land supply position being 1.72 years, the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies. Torbay has a pressing need to identify more housing land. Town centres are often considered the most sustainable location for development, as they are close to a range of services, amenities and facilities. Residential accommodation within town centres also helps regenerate those areas and support retail and other commercial uses. The regeneration of the town centre area is very strongly supported in the development plan and is echoed by the Neighbourhood Forum and the Council's Principal Policy and Project Planner. The Council have a draft Torbay Regeneration Vision document which is anticipated to be formally adopted in 2025. The document recommends reducing the retail core and encouraging retailers to relocate from Union Street to Fleet Walk to provide critical mass of retailers to ensure vitality in the long term. The current high levels of vacancy along Union Street can over time be converted into mixed-use residential neighbourhoods, with Union Square Shopping Centre, including its frontages on the corner of Union Street and Market Street, being identified as a potential site for a mixed-use neighbourhood. With regards to the Union Square Shopping Centre, there are 19 units within such, of which 10 units are currently vacant. The proposal involves the creation of a new commercial unit within Block A and the repurposing of the former Wilco store on the ground and first floors of the multi-storey car park, and the retention of the existing commercial floor space within the market. It is considered that the proposed development may result in a minor negative impact on the Torquay town centre retail turnover in quantitative terms. However, there is no evidence to indicate that the development would have a significant adverse impact upon the vitality and viability of the town centre. The proposal will be a catalyst at helping the town centre evolve and adapt to consolidate the retail uses towards the southern end of Union Street and Fleet Walk, whilst providing much needed housing. In terms of design and visual impact, the committee report provides an overview and analysis of the proposed design and considers the visual impact of the proposed development. The scheme has evolved through the pre-application inquiry process and the Torbay design review panel. The proposed development is considered to respond to the existing urban form while delivering an appropriate scale and density for a town centre site. The proposal for 99 units provides a suitable balance between housing delivery and placemaking. Several planning conditions are recommended to ensure that the proposed development delivers a high-quality regenerative development. In terms of impact on heritage assets, the application site is not within, but is in close proximity to several conservation areas: Upton Conservation Area, Abbey Road Conservation Area, Torquay Harbour Conservation Area, and the Warburys Conservation Area. The application site also includes the Grade 2 listed Pannier market, and it should also be noted that the application site is within close proximity to the old Sessions House, which is also a Grade 2 listed building. The Council's Conservation and Urban Design Officer has confirmed that the proposed development is unlikely to impact the setting of the adjacent conservation areas, and the officer has concurred that the proposed development would have a neutral impact on the old Sessions House Grade 2 listed building. The proposed openings in both the south and west elevations of the Pannier market would represent a considerable loss of historic fabric dating from the building's original construction. The Council's officer considers that the proposed works would result in less than substantial harm to a minor to moderate degree. This level of harm must be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. The two new fire escape staircases have been located and designed to reduce any physical and visual impacts on the interior of the building. Based on the restorative benefits of the scheme and the investment proposed into the wider regeneration scheme for the Union Square Shopping Centre, the building will be able to maintain its continued optimum viable use as a Pannier market, along with associated social and economic benefits. There is deemed to be a significant public benefit to outweigh the identified level of less than substantial harm. The proposal is considered to result in a minor impact on the significance of the building. This impact has been reduced from moderate to minor given the positive heritage enhancements the proposal would deliver from the demolition of the existing ad hoc extensions to the listed building. In this regard, there is considered to be a negligible degree of change in the significance. However, based on the restorative benefits of the scheme and the investment proposed, apologies, I think I've repeated myself there. Moving on to residential amenity. In terms of location, the application site is within Torquay Town Centre and is therefore considered to be in a sustainable location for future use and suited to a residential occupancy, presenting good opportunities for future occupants in terms of access to facilities, services and sustainable transport options. The proposed residential units comply with the nationally described space standards. The scheme provides a communal green space that cumulatively exceeds the policy-guided minimum of 990 square metres. The applicant has also submitted a daylight and sunlight assessment which demonstrates that 95% of all rooms, so 225 out of 238, achieve their daylight provision targets. Given its siting scale and design, it is considered that the proposal would not result in any detrimental harm to the amenities of the occupants of neighbouring buildings in terms of their privacy, outlook or access to natural light. Several planning conditions are recommended to protect the residential amenity of both future and existing occupiers. In terms of highways movement and parking, Union Street is one way in a southbound direction between Castle Circus and Market Street. On the site's other boundaries are Market Street to the east, Castle Lane and the existing Union Square multi-storey car park to the north, Castle Road to the west. Market Street is a two-way arrangement enabling access to commercial and residential units. The street also provides access to Albert Road, which is a loading bay for the existing Union Square Shopping Centre and Union Square multi-storey car park. In terms of the proposed residential development, the Highway Authority considers that the trip generation appears reasonable for a car-free development. The proposed plans confirm that pedestrian and cycle access can be achieved from Market Street and Union Street. The site is considered to be well located for access to public transport with bus stops on Union Street and Market Street within 100 metres of the site. The applicant has had discussions with the parking services who have confirmed that it would be possible to designate an area of the multi-storey car park for residents of blocks A and B who would have either extended or unrestricted access. Therefore, an additional planning condition is recommended, which is not stated within the committee report, highlighting a parking strategy. There is sufficient space within the application site to ensure adequate bin and cycle storage. Several planning conditions are recommended also within the committee report in relation to highways matters. In terms of ecology, biodiversity and trees, the application site is entirely urban with very few opportunities for habitats and protected species. Planning conditions are recommended within the committee report in relation to nesting, birds, bats and ecological enhancements. An appropriate assessment has been submitted to Natural England with regards to the potential effects of the development on the Lyme Bay and Torbay Marine Special Area of Conservation due to changes to water quality. Natural England have been consulted on the appropriate assessment, and as per my update earlier, I'm yet to receive a response. Therefore, the recommendation is subject to receiving a no objection from Natural England in due course. That's applicable to the major and the listed building consent applications. In England, biodiversity net gain has been mandatory since February 2024. Devon County Council's ecologist has confirmed that the proposed development is exempt from the mandatory requirement due to it being within the de minimis threshold. The proposed development proposes to deliver both high-quality private gardens and public realm provision, which incorporates structural tree planting. A condition is recommended to secure the soft landscaping. In terms of flood risk and drainage, the Union Street side of the site is located within the edge of flood zone 3, with the remainder of the site being located within flood zone 1 and the critical drainage area as designated by the Environment Agency. Part of the application site is also at risk from surface water flooding. The Environment Agency are satisfied with the revised site-specific flood risk assessment subject to the planning conditions recommended within the committee report relating to built topographical levels, finished floor levels and the flood resilience and resistance measures. Planning conditions are also recommended to secure surface water drainage. In terms of low carbon development and climate change, a planning condition is recommended to secure a development which achieves a low carbon design and follows the sequential energy hierarchy. Designing out crime, the application site sits in the neighbourhood policing beat area of Torquay Town Centre, which in terms of demand for policing is within the top 5 beat areas of Devon and Cornwall and is currently the highest in the whole of South Devon local policing area. Devon and Cornwall's Police Designing Out Crime Officer has been consulted and has reviewed the proposed development. A planning condition is recommended to ensure that the proposed development meets the standards of secured by design. I'm now going to do the key issues and material considerations in relation to P 2025-0164, the list of building consent. In terms of impact on heritage and design, the proposed openings in both the south and west elevations of the Pannier market would represent a considerable loss of historic fabric dating from the building's original construction. The Council's Conservation and Urban Design Officer considers that the proposed works would result in less than substantial harm to a minor to moderate degree. This level of harm must be weighed against the public benefits. The removal of modern fittings, including the suspended ceiling, stud partitions, ceilings, doors and unit frontages, would not result in any harm to the significance of the heritage asset. These elements were added during the refurbishment in 2006 and do not contribute towards the significance of the listed building. The 2 new fire escape staircases have been located and designed to reduce any physical and visual impacts on the interior of the building. These works are justified in terms of their requirements under Part B of the building regulations. Based on the restorative benefits of the scheme and the investment proposed into the wider regeneration scheme for the Union Square Shopping Centre, the building will be able to maintain its continued optimum viable use as a Pannier market, along with the associated economic and social benefits. There is deemed to be a significant public benefit to outweigh the identified level of less than substantial harm. As previously mentioned, as per the major planning application, in terms of impact on ecology, the application has been supported by an ecological appraisal. There are planning conditions recommended within the committee report in relation to bats, nesting birds, ecological enhancements. An appropriate assessment has been submitted to Natural England in relation to the effect on the Lyme Bay and Torbay Marine Special Area of Conservation due to changes in water quality. Natural England have been consulted on the appropriate assessment but are yet to provide a response. And therefore the officer recommendations in relation, this first one is in relation to the major planning application P/2025/0173. is approval subject to the planning conditions outlined below with the final drafting of planning conditions delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency, the completion of the Section 106 agreement, receiving a consultation response from Natural England to confirm no objection to the Council's appropriate assessment, the resolution of any new material considerations that may come to light following Planning Committee to be delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency, including the addition of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. If members of Planning Committee are minded to refuse the application against the officer recommendation, final drafting of the reasons will be delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency and in consultation with the chairperson. Would you like me to give the other recommendation before? And the second recommendation is in relation to the listed building consent application for P/2025/0164. Approval subject to the planning conditions outlined below with the final drafting of planning conditions delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency, receiving consultation response from Natural England to confirm no objection to the Council's appropriate assessment, and the resolution of it come to light following Planning Committee to be delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing, Climate Emergency, including the addition of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. If members of Planning Committee are minded to refuse the application against the officer recommendation, final drafting of the reasons will be delegated to the Divisional Director of Planning, Housing and Climate Emergency and in consultation with the chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Elliott, for once again excellent. I'm now going to call upon Bethan Huntley. Bethan is addressing the meeting against the application. Because we have two applications together, you have 10 minutes to speak on both applications, and the clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I speak on behalf of the community organisation Safe Sustainable Travel Torbay. We welcome high-density housing in the town centre. Torquay needs more homes, but it needs to be developed in ways that reduce car dependency. The scheme is described as car-free, yet the developer's own travel plan predicts contributing to local congestion issues, as around 40% of the journeys will still be by car. The transport assessment is also based on comparative sites in cities with much stronger public transport and cycling networks than Torbay. Here, without that infrastructure, the assumption of such low car use is simply unrealistic. And in any case, there will always be residual trips, deliveries servicing visitors and disabled access. National planning policy and Active Travel England's standing advice is clear. Where infrastructure is needed to make a development acceptable, it should be secured via planning obligation. Torbay's own policy seek to reduce car dependency, improve public health and ensure new developments support sustainable transport. The Council's minimum sustainable transport contributions for 79 proposed open market homes is £71,595 before considering any commercial floor space. Officers argue that the SPD doesn't apply because the open market homes are still liable, whilst also suggesting a nominal sum of £5,000. However, it is also stated that additional obligations may be sought where developments generate traffic impacts, lack on-site parking, or require safety improvements to surrounding infrastructure. All of the above apply here. The developer's plans rely on significantly increasing the number of people cycling. However, we disagree their assessment that local active travel infrastructure is good. The painted advisory cycle lane on Union Street, which you will have seen today, is extremely dangerous. It forces cyclists into the door zone of parked vehicles and sandwiches them between buses and other vehicles. There is no signed route in the opposite direction, creating conflict with pedestrians as some users will travel on the pavement, or they might have to attempt to navigate uninviting back streets. There is also no accommodation of cycles at the signalised junction between Union and Market Street. What that means is there is no way to travel on a bike in the opposite direction because it just isn't accommodated by those traffic lights. Most people will not cycle unless routes are coherent, safe and comfortable, as outlined in LTN 120. Those who do risk collisions with vehicles and pedestrians. Councillors have a statutory duty to promote road safety and a common law duty of care. Decisions that knowingly ignore clear risks are not just poor planning, they risk liability as well as public harm. What is the plan for this part of Torquay to make active travel a safe, natural choice? Without the delivery of meaningful active travel infrastructure and a credible transport plan, this development cannot be considered acceptable in planning terms. We therefore object to the scheme as it stands and call on the committee to ensure developments like this proportionately contribute to making active travel a safe and natural choice.
Thank you, Ms Huntley. I'll call now Dr. Rodney Horder. Dr. Horder is speaking on behalf of Torquay Neighbourhood Forum and is in support of the application. You have 10 minutes, Dr. Horder, and the clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The statements have been reviewed and approved by the steering group of the Torquay Neighbourhood Forum, and first I'll address the Pannier market, as that's very straightforward. The Forum supports the principle of development of Union Square, and we regard the listed building consent as an element of this project, so we've not responded separately to the application. But overall, we are pleased to see the proposal to restore the Pannier market to its former state and make it a key feature of the proposed development as an individual structure. On this basis, the Forum fully supports the application for listed building consent. As far as the main scheme is concerned, we are very supportive of the provision of this residential accommodation, and we are delighted to see the on-site provision of 20% affordable homes. As it is a council-led development, it would be great if this percentage could be increased. However, we expressed concerns about the design and dominance of Building A in particular, and its impact on the overall neighbourhood. This was an opportunity to provide a showcase development, but a number of us considered the plans resembled a post-war Stalinist building more appropriate to 1950s Warsaw or Leningrad. And I must admit some of the elevations that Miss Elliott showed do rather reflect that characteristic. We reviewed this against the Torbay Local Development 2005 to 2026 Urban Design Guide, and felt, as it stands, it failed to meet the criteria for good design. Subsequently to our response, Milligan and the architect attended a steering group meeting and showed us some computer-generated images that allayed our concerns to some extent, as they were more informative than the design drawings. The majority of the steering group members were satisfied, but some members remained concerned. Design is subjective, and we would like to suggest that you come to your individual conclusions on this matter, and perhaps approval of the overall finish and detailed design could be included as a planning condition. We are pleased to see the inclusion of cycle storage and note that the development is on a bus route. But we anticipate that some residents will still require cars, so we would encourage an arrangement that would assign permits in the car park, which will remain. However, the development has been promoted as car-free, with the travel plan suggesting that only a very small proportion of resident journeys will be by car, and that cycling to work from the site will more than triple within 5 years. At present, this projection is entirely unrealistic. There are currently no council proposals to improve cycling infrastructure in this part of Torquay, nor any committed plans for change. What is missing is a better integration of this development with the overall provision of safe cycling routes in Torquay and fulfilment of the council aspirations for sustainable travel and carbon neutrality. This will require some infrastructure and the necessary investment. As this is currently a council-led development, we believe it will not necessarily qualify for Section 106 funding, but we ask that a condition is included to provide such funding should the project be taken over by a developer. However, in conclusion, the Forum supports approval of this application if you are satisfied with the design of Building A and if investment can be found to meet the aspirations for sustainable travel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Halder. I'll now call on Councillor Swithin-Long to address the meeting. You have 10 minutes, and the clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'd known I'd had 10 minutes, I'd have written a longer speech, but the committee will be delighted to hear that I won't be taking up that long. The Union Square planning application has been described in some quarters as a game changer. However, with its changes to the original plans, I fear that residents will wake up after the scheme has been implemented with nothing much having changed at all. The report references the fact that originally there were plans for 250 homes, and now we have an application for only 99. As a result, the pressure on our green spaces will remain. I agree with the Torquay Neighbourhood Forum statement in the report and verbally just now that it would be good if the affordable housing element was increased. This application is a real missed opportunity. For a council-owned site, the council could have sent a huge signal to the market that we expect applications to have more than just the minimum policy compliant amount of affordable homes. With a 20% policy compliant application, only 20 of the 99 homes will be affordable. For the over 1,600 households on the waiting list and over 100 households in temporary accommodation, this application will not be a game changer. It will mean a continued long wait without a home for many. I would urge the committee to refuse this application with a request that an application comes back with a much increased affordable housing element. Why not 50 or even 100%? Why should private developers commit to more than the minimum policy compliant commitment to affordable housing if the council can't be bothered on a scheme on its own land? I am also concerned about the effect on some viable businesses which could be forced to close. The report references the need for food stores in the town centre, but there are no reassurances about the future for Iceland, which is an important low-cost food store for our deprived communities in Watcombe and Tormoen, for example. As part of this application, we are also staring down the barrel of the closure of Nexus Games, which serves many residents that other stores don't service, including those from the LGBTQ+ community and also those facing mental health challenges, amongst others. If this store closes, the council could face more calls on its adult social care budget. And one thing which I almost laughed at this evening, at an event over the weekend, a couple from Wellswood described the design of the scheme before you as Stalinist. So for the second time tonight, I agree with the Torquay Neighbourhood Forum with their comment on the design. So this application could be so much better, and I would urge the committee to send it back for reworking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Long. I now call on Phil Jones to address the meeting in support of the application. You have 10 minutes, Mr. Jones, and the clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members and officers. Thank you for your officer's presentation of the proposals this evening. We would like to briefly respond to the points raised regarding active travel and cycle provision in the development. Some of those were already highlighted by the officer in her report, but the starting point, which is important to emphasise, is that the site is in a highly sustainable town centre location, which facilitates easy access for residents to local services and facilities. The site is located on a cycle route and appropriate facilities have been provided within the development to enable and encourage cycling. The scheme includes dedicated facilities for residents, featuring secure covered cycle storage with capacity for standard and adapted bicycles for disabled users. A maintenance and washdown area supporting residents in the upkeep of their bicycles is also provided. In addition to residential cycle storage, there is storage for commercial users and visitors to the site within development to encourage people to travel by bicycle to those facilities. And there was also conditions proposed to be imposed on the planning permission, which will require the cycle storage to be included in the scheme prior to the occupation of the development. Further, there is also a travel plan included in the proposal with smart measures that will achieve or seek to achieve a 30% change modal shift from car travel to foot, cycle and public transport. This is not a highways improvement scheme, so we are unable to undertake improvements beyond the site itself, but it does make provision to enable and encourage a modal shift from private car use to sustainable and active travel options. Just more widely on the design points that were raised, the scheme has been subject to extensive consultation through engagement with officers, public consultation and taking the scheme to the design review panel. It has been amended through that process and it is considered to be a comprehensive and well considered design response to the site and meets the requirements of the design objectives of the relevant development plan policies. Just to briefly touch on the public consultation undertaken, there has been extensive engagement with local businesses, schools and residents. We had 2 drop-in sessions with local businesses and we had 2 public consultation events on the weekend and weekdays held in the shopping centre itself. There was an opportunity for feedback to be provided at the events with a total of 348 feedbacks provided during that process. 66% of the residents, of the respondents said they strongly supported the scheme and the proposals, and 61% of the respondents felt the redevelopment would positively impact Torquay's town centre. Just to touch briefly on the benefits of the development, what is seeking to provide 99 new homes will make a significant difference to Torbay's housing supply position. Of those, a minimum 20% will be affordable homes for local people. The scheme will provide a mix of housing types and sizes to meet a cross-section of the housing need. And beyond the housing, the proposals include a new public square and open space with a focal point outside the Pannier market, as we saw on the plans earlier. The public square will be addressed with a new commercial cafe space within the development and a newly enhanced public realm area. The scheme includes the adaptation of the existing building where the former Wilkinson store was to create a new commercial space. The intention being that that would be taken by local healthcare providers for whom discussions are ongoing. And the scheme will remove unsympathetic buildings currently abutting the listed Pannier market to restore its significance on a prominent corner of Union Street and Market Street, which we have heard would be considered as a heritage benefit. The proposal brings significant investment into Torquay and will kick-start the regeneration to a struggling area of the town. Your officers have reached a clear view on the planning balance, assessing the significant public benefits of the proposals as outweighing the identified minor harm to the heritage assets, being the Pannier market listed building. And there was a minor conflict with policies TC2 and TC4, the local plan, regarding the retail policies. But the overall planning balance has been assessed, undertaken and found that the proposal is in accordance with the local plan, the aims and objectives of national planning policy guidance, and so accordingly we would welcome members' endorsement of your officers' recommendation to approve the planning application and the listed building consent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. So, members, we now get to the point of inviting questions to our planning officer. As usual, may I remind members, questions should only cover matters not raised in the presentation. Who would like to ask questions? Councillor Verdi.
Thank you, Chair. First question, Emily, is the architecture still in East?
I missed what you said. Sorry, can you say that again?
Is the architecture Stalinist in nature?
The design's carefully been thought through by the architect in terms of changing. The design has evolved from 250 units down to 99. It didn't, I should note, it didn't come in at 250 when we had the original, when the application first came in, but it's had careful consideration in terms of height, scale, massing in relation to what's already in the townscape.
Thank you. There was a late objection regarding loss of light. Is that affecting any residential properties that are already in existence?
So I've had a look through the property addresses for the surrounding streets, so Union Street and Market Street. In terms of residential uses above the existing commercial units, as you can see, there is no residential on ground floor surrounding the application site, adjacent to the site, should I say. There are very limited opportunities and existence of residential units, but the applicant has provided a daylight and sunlight study to demonstrate that it won't harm, there won't be a level of harm, there'll be adequate daylight and sunlight levels for the future occupiers. And in terms of adjacent occupiers, the site's obviously got the multi-storey car park to the rear. Nothing's happening in terms of height, or only the ground and first floor for that. The Pannier market is on the other flank of the application site. And then on the Union Square frontage where Block A is, Block B is obviously within, so again having no impact because that's surrounded by Block A, the multi-storey and the Pannier market. And Block A, there's got very limited interactions, there's very limited properties on the opposite side. So in terms of orientation and things like that, it's not considered there would be a detrimental impact on the adjacent occupiers in terms of light, day level, light and sunlight levels.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the businesses, there's still quite a few there, and most of them require large premises to operate, for example, Iceland and Pound Stretcher. Has the council made any way of finding those, to rehouse those commercial operators anywhere else in town?
So the committee report details the level of vacancy. So there's 19 existing units within the shopping centre. That's not including the units running down Union Street, that's Costa Coffee, The Works, Nationwide, etc. And then obviously going up Market Street. I'm not privy to all the conversations, but I am aware that they have been negotiating with the existing occupiers to try and relocate them elsewhere within the town centre.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you. The proposal is basically putting forward a mixture of public open space and private open space. I'd just like to have the officers' view as to whether they think the developers have got the balance right. Thank you.
So in terms of the level of open space provided, the private open space is larger than the public open space. However, consideration needs to be given to obviously the anticipated occupiers of blocks A and B and ensuring that there's defensible space, that they have got amenity space. So the development plan, both the local plan and the neighbourhood plan recommend a guideline of 10 square metres either individually or communally sought for outdoor amenity space. So whilst this proposal has exceeded that 990 square metres expectation because there's 99 units, I don't think it's unjust. And I think, again, there would also, that would introduce further built forms. You'd have to have boundary treatments again to ensure that the public can't access or impinge on the privacy or cause noise and disturbance to the future occupiers. So in terms, I think the bottom corner of the public open space will provide a space for social cohesion, interaction, a meeting place, it'll be place making, wayfinding, and then moving through, when they go up through the Mews Street, they'll obviously be deterred away from the private amenity space. But I think the proposed blocks of built form actually carefully consider of not making it such an obvious divide between public and private.
Thank you for your explanation. Thank you.
Councillor Pannier.
Thank you, Chair. As colleagues will know, as a committee, when we consider any application and when we consider refusal for any application, we're told that we should keep in mind proposing good reasons for refusal, and that failure to do so could see a challenge and indeed cost awarded against us. How does this apply in a case like this one when the agent is acting on behalf of the local authority, and is that risk reduced or removed as a result of that?
I'll just get a reply from our legal on that if necessary. Yep. Where is
Elaine? Is on Zoom.
Elaine?
I don't know if you can hear me.
So, before you start, Elaine, can you just introduce who you are so everybody will know? Thank you.
Hi, yes, I'm Elaine Bell, legal advisor to the committee. Yes, I think the question was what are the chances, or if there's any difference if the challenge was made in relation to this application, because it's obviously sort of council led. I mean, that's sort of quite an unusual scenario for it to happen. But I guess if a challenge was made, it probably would have to be from if it were decided it was, challengeable on the basis that it was unreasonable or irrational or something like that, warranting a judicial review, then yes, it could be made by a member of the council. But I think, it would be unusual to have such a challenge in an application such as this, but it's not unheard of. I don't know if that addresses the question.
Jim, can you come back in on that, please?
Yeah, Councillor Pannier, I think it's important to note this is very well documented to get to this point. So it's been through a sequence of events. We've heard the sort of planning side of things where it's gone through design review panel, pre-application inquiry, the scheme being worked up, the scheme you see before you now, all the statutory consultees, all that's incredibly well documented alongside all the stakeholder engagement or member briefings. So we've reached a point where we're at that final conclusion now in terms of decision making. So I think we're quite clear, it's very well documented to get to this point that what before you now is the decision. So the kind of risk that you're trying to elaborate on now, I think is very low. So we're quite clear, it's well documented in both committee reports as well.
Chair, if I may. I hear what you're saying, but I think, I think it does have an impact on the dynamic of this decision we come to, because in a way we've kind of made a rod for our own backs as a committee, because we've always told in very stern terms, bear in mind I've been on this committee longer for my sins than anyone, that the risk there is legally and borne out in the decision-making precedent, something to be considered. And there's just a political reality that, due to the relatively strange nature of this applicant, that inevitably will play into the dynamic of the decision-making process, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Pannier. I should probably just raise it to your attention that the applicant for both applications is Wilmot Dixon, not Torbay Council.
But contracted and appointed by Torbay Council.
David, before you speak, can you just say who you are, please?
Yes.
Hello, my name is David Pickhaver. I'm a Principal Planning Officer dealing really with the local plan and local plan policies. And sort of my day job, if you like, is to try and work out how Torbay will meet its housing targets. And insofar as that does touch on this current planning application, perhaps I could say that really the local planning authority should determine all applications sort of on their planning merit, and rather than who the particular applicant is. And irrespective of who the planning applicant is in the case, the council does need to apply the presumption in favour of sustainable development in favour of this application. We have a serious housing shortfall, and that does need to be given quite significant weight in favour of this planning application. And I say that applies both at a policy making level, where we have to identify net land for new housing, but also in terms of determining planning applications. Thank you.
Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions, please. The multi-storey car park is obviously very close to the properties. Has there been anything in the report, I'm sorry if I missed it, about noise levels coming from the multi-storey car park on the properties? And the reason why I ask this is because I have a lot of emails and correspondence from residents of Rock Road and up there, and they have terrible problems with the multi-storey car park up there. Cars and bikes and motorcycles riding late at night, causing a lot of noise. And I wondered if there was anything in the report of maybe mitigating circumstances or soundproofing or anything that might help that.
Thank you, Councillor Darling. In terms of the car park at the moment, its current operation is not 24 hours a day. So in terms of noise nuisance at night time, unless the applicant, along with parking services, agree for a section of the car park to be for the future development, there wouldn't be any noise from the car park at night time as such. So it would just be general operating hours. I think I quoted it earlier, from about 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. Approximately those times. I can't remember quite what I said earlier, but it is detailed in the committee report. So I don't think it would be undue noise and disturbance at that level. And also it's the higher levels of the car park, whereas the mews will sit definitely below the levels of the car parking. And then block A, which is obviously larger, 4 to 5 stories, is then set further away again from that.
I don't think Fleet Walk is 24 hours, is it? Yeah. Fleet Walk car park, I thought that closed at a certain time. Anyway, so my next question then is about the public areas. Obviously these are very near the public highway and the pedestrian way and everything. What has been put in to ensure these aren't just used as dumping grounds? People just littering and things like that? Is anything can be done in that way?
In terms of landscaping, there is a planning condition recommended, which will be for the management and maintenance of the landscaping. There's also a planning condition in relation to boundary treatments. So obviously the private amenity space would be managed by a management company who would come in and maintain the lawns and planting areas. In terms of the public open space, again, that would be managed and maintained. And I assume the management company would also cover that small section in front of Block A that will have the proposed railings in front of it.
The Pannier market, obviously you have to make a new entryway, which isn't so good for the heritage. If, when all the investigations and everything have been done, if an alternative way is found that wouldn't need the creation of a new way, would you be able to put it in as a recommendation that that entrance is used to ensure, you know, that there's less damage done?
In terms of the Pannier market, so the scheme is, as it is before you, that level of harm from the proposed new openings has been established and assessed by the Council's Conservation and Urban Design Officer. There are many planning conditions attached to the list of building consent and the major planning application in terms of building recording, and when the demolition takes place, if historic openings are found, for that to be evidenced and added to the building record. But I think, as I mentioned in my committee PowerPoint and also within my committee report, the new fire escape doors are actually essential, because at the moment on the left-hand side of the Pannier market, if we were stood on Market Street and the Pannier market was ahead of us, in front of us, on the left-hand side there, the cafe is only accessed from the left-hand side. There is no interaction at ground or first floor. There's a wall between the two. So in terms of fire safety and accessibility, when the demolition takes place, it wouldn't be building regulations compliant. Therefore, they need the new fire escapes in to ensure that the safety of users of the space is protected. But the application is as it is before you, so there will be no negotiation on the openings. They're all detailed within the elevational drawings.
Thank you. My last one, I promise. When the first application came in, how many properties were on that? How much has the number come down, basically?
So originally the scheme was for 102 when it came in as a planning application. As mentioned, the scheme before, when they were undertaking their feasibility studies from day dot, when they first thought about the site and the redevelopment, there was potentially the opportunity for up to 250 units, but within the design and access statement, it basically explains that the unit number has decreased due to density, financial feasibility, and the market attractiveness for institutional investors. So when the application came in, it came in for 102. That has now decreased down to 99, and that was due to officer concerns relating to daylight and sunlight within Block A, particularly in relation to units that would have only been served by the creation of the light well.
Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Chair. Can the officers please advise on whether the application accords with the thrust of the Torbay local plan, or do the officers feel that in fact it's not in accordance with the plan at all? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. I think the committee report, both committee reports actually highlight the planning balance and the assessment that's been made, and has come to the conclusion where there is a level of less than substantial harm to the heritage asset, it is outweighed by public benefit. It's been finely balanced, and it's a both very detailed reports to cover the level of accordance with the development plans. There is some level of conflict in places, but the overall regeneration project would outweigh the harm identified.
Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. The first observation I'd make is to thank Ms Elliott for another extremely detailed report. I don't believe I've ever seen one with 51 separate conditions before us in this committee meeting, and I think that shows the detail that's being applied here. I have 4 questions, if I may, Chair. I'd like to turn to some of the comments made by Councillor Long, where he advocated that this committee should be very cautious about this application because there wasn't enough social or affordable housing. I'm wondering whether officers could refresh my memory in relation to a previous development of Brampton Court, which the council's website reminds me on the 16th of May is coming forward for 14 social rented units. What the application was actually for, please, that's my first question to officers. What was the application coming for in relation to Brampton Court?
You'll have to give us a few minutes to just research that a second on the council website, okay, and then kind of expand on the relevance of that as we're searching.
Okay. If it helps officers, when I looked briefly earlier, I understood it to be for 14 open market units, and I just wondered whether you could confirm whether that initial view was correct, please.
So there are two recent applications on Brampton that I can see. One is P/2024/0738, which was the conversion of building to 14 units of Class C3 self-contained dwellings with associated parking, and I can't read the rest of the description. And when I've looked on the application form, that did come in as 14 open market units. I haven't opened up the variation of section 73. Do you want me to do that too, or you have to give me a minute?
Those are now being delivered at 100% affordable housing, aren't they?
So, can I just clarify on that? So there's my understanding from that council website is they were not just being delivered as affordable, but they were being delivered as social rent, recognising we've got this spectrum of costs. Affordable means it's the market value, but provided 80% of market value. Social is 60% of market value, and of all of the different ranges of affordable housing, the one that's the lowest cost to the person that needs a home is social rent. And where I was trying to get to, officers, just to fully understand that point, where we were advocated to refuse this, based off what's said in the application form, there would be, as I understand it, nothing to stop the council having gone for the scheme that's the widest possible, which is for the policy compliant levels of affordable housing, to then bring this forward as 100% social housing. Would I be correct, or would that require a different application?
I've just had a quick look, sorry, going back to the 2025 application, that's yet to be determined, so the 2024 one remains. That is for 14 open market. It is being brought forward, as you say, for social rent. The variation is in relation to the approved plans as well, so it's not relating. It wouldn't need another application to come forward.
Councillor Bennett, just going to ask David Pickhaver to come in as well. Thank you.
Thank you. There's two broad routes in which affordable housing can be provided. The first one is sometimes called the Section 106 route, which is set down by policy H2 of the local plan, and that sets a minimum level of affordable housing, which in the case of brownfield sites is 20% affordable housing. But we have issued guidance to say that that's not the ceiling level if additional sources of funding can be provided. So and the other route is through additional public subsidy to exceed the affordable rate that could be achieved through Section 106, and that may well be the case if there's the additional funding. That a higher level of affordable housing could come forward, and the council, as I say, we don't set a ceiling, so the 20% is the minimum rather than the ceiling rate. What I would say is that we need to be careful that we apply our policy fairly across the board, and we don't set the council a higher standard through Section 106 agreements than we would for a private developer. And so that in policy terms, as 20% affordable housing meets the requirement of policy H2 of the local plan, and it would probably, well, I'm not saying that members can't resist it because it's not applying a higher rate of affordable housing, but the policy is being met by the 20%, and if a higher rate can be achieved through non-Section 106 reasons, then that would be acceptable. But the planning application in front of us is, or review at the moment, is for 20%.
Can I just expand on that, Mr. Pickhaver, for absolute certainty? If the council, having obtained planning consent, is able to negotiate with Homes England or the government or any external funding sources and bring this development forward, for example, for 100% social housing, as it has done in relation to Brampton Court, would it need a different planning consent, or could it do so under this one, please?
That may be something for a legal view, but in my view, affordable housing is housing. It's still a Class C3 use, and unless this committee caps the level of affordable housing, which you would be within your rights to do that, there could be cases where a local planning authority said we don't want more than 20% affordable housing, but we have issued guidance that we won't cap the level of affordable housing, that the level of affordable housing is a minimum and not a maximum. So if it's granted planning permission for 20% affordable housing, that will in effect reflect the level of Section 106 subsidy we're looking for. And if there is additional subsidy that can be provided to increase that, my advice is that can be achieved. You can go for a higher rate of affordable housing, and that wouldn't need a new planning application.
I'm just going to ask Elaine to come in. Thank you.
Apologies for the delay. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much, David. That was really quite helpful. Because the policy does actually say it's a minimum. Because I was going to say that it does actually depend on what's written in the policy. If the policy only says that there is a minimum affordable housing requirement, then it wouldn't require separate planning permission, because it would be the same use Class C3 residential. So it could be altered or increased.
So in other words, there would be nothing to stop this development if our housing delivery officers are able to obtain additional funding to come forward for more than 20% affordable housing. Can I have that in a yes or no answer for absolute clarity, please, officers?
Housing is housing. There shouldn't be any difference between whether it's open market or affordable, or whatever it is. There's not a requirement for planning permission. Housing is housing, regardless of who occupies it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that wasn't yes or no, but
yeah, that was for absolute clarity. Thank you. I'm sorry, officers, to labour that point. Thank you for indulging that, Elaine, Mr. Pighaver, Mr. Blackwell, Ms. Elliott. My next question, hopefully a little bit more simple. We've heard some suggestions about getting 250 units on the site, recognising comments about the current design aesthetic being Stalinist, a view that I personally don't share. I just wondered whether officers could assist me with. I appreciate it's not the design we've got in front of us, but it is in my mind to make sure. Have you had evidence put forward to show that we're making the best use of land and that this is an appropriate development, so we're not missing out on units that could otherwise come forward? Because, for example, I've seen comments from officers' reports in other applications where you've got a large site, we've only got a few units on it. We talked about previously in the other application where we had 10, whether it was making the best use of land. Are you able, in your opinion, to advise this is making the best use of land, please?
I think this site's very complex and constrained by lots of different things: flood risk, heritage assets, the built form, the rock face around it, the multi-storey car park, multiple different things. So in terms of number of units, and when you look at the design access statement and how the scheme's evolved from being very large pieces of development to now some elements of this are still very large, and you may argue that the block B is smaller. However, I think you need to consider things like daylight, sunlight, floor space standards, lots of different intervening factors that potentially play a role, and the higher quantum, the more risk comes at jeopardising that quality of internal living environment and potentially external living environment, more built form, less outdoor amenity space. So it's a finely balanced scheme, and the design and access statement really does provide a very good picture of the evolution of the scheme and how they've unfortunately had to reduce the number, but there's placemaking and lots of other things bringing into the realm that's then landed them to understand that approximately 100 units is the best way forwards.
Sorry, Chair, I promise I'll be trying to be brief. We heard from the member of the public, Ms Huntley, earlier in relation to the importance of cycles, sustainable transport. I just wanted to check we've got enough in here about parking provision and parking strategy. We've got conditions 27, 28 and 29, which refer to cycle storage for residential, commercial and a travel plan. Have we got enough in there in relation to an overall parking strategy? Could that be included within the travel plan, or do you think that's sufficient? Officers, please.
That should be a separate planning condition. I think in my script I'd maybe outlined that if that was something I had missed, but if members are minded to go with the officer recommendation, I highly recommend the inclusion of a parking strategy, and that should be in consultation with the council's parking services.
And we are getting a record chair, that would be 52 conditions. And potentially a 53rd, I don't know. Members saw on site the quality of the stonework on the Pannier market, and I just wanted to understand whether we thought we'd got sufficient in there to ensure the cleaning of that stone in order to ensure it was brought back to as visually pleasing appearance as possible, recognising the efforts that are going on into physically separate built form away from the Pannier market. Could I have some advice on that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Billings. Very good question, and I would like to refer to my colleague Ross Wise, who's the Council's Conservation and Urban Design Officer, who's provided me with consultation responses in relation to both the major and listed building consent. Thank you.
Ross? Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Ross Wise, the Council's Conservation and Urban Design Officer. So I think it's important to note at the moment that the building is largely blue. There's no real aspiration from the applicant to paint any of the stonework that isn't already painted. Where there's elements along the plinth, I believe that's to be removed. Where I think Emily's put a couple of conditions in there to do with methods of removal and to do with the repainting as well. But it's important to note that we're starting from a position where it's already painted a number of colours, and that the proposal before us is for a kind of uniformity applied to the top half above the plinth in white. I think we're yet to come to an exact scheme of, if there's any additional bits to be removed that are painted, but I think that's something that could be worked up if necessary.
So would that be an additional condition, or would that be variation of the wording of the existing conditions, please?
I mean, potentially an alternative one, if there's a kind of a scheme to come forward that you'd like to see of, a bit more detail on to do with the external paint finish and where it's to be applied. Or we do have one in already for the paint coating, but I think that's more specific to the type and specification of the paint to be used.
I'd just like to add that I would recommend that goes in as an additional condition to both the listed building consent and the major planning application. Thank you.
What would we call that, please, Ms Elliott? Would that be a stone cleaning or a stone finish condition?
Yeah, stone clean and sample, I'd term it.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry for that. Appreciate those answers. Thank you. That covers everything.
Councillor Strang?
I'd just like to address some of the comments that have been made about the design of Block A specifically. During our discussions in the briefing, we were discussing why the height of that building doesn't change with the road level. I wonder if you could just confirm to committee in this room some of the reasons why the building doesn't step down with the road level.
Thank you, Councillor Strang. Yeah, so as I said, the site is very complex and constrained, and earlier in our briefing I'd shown you the Environment Agency's flood risk mapping that shows that part of the application site from Union Street is within flood zone 3. And it's also a large proportion of the application site is susceptible to surface water flooding. So as part of the pre-application process the applicant has undertaken, they've also had discussions with the Environment Agency in terms of finished floor levels and flood resilience and resistance measures. So the proposal has to be built to a certain finished floor level to ensure that the risk to life of future occupiers is not compromised. So the Environment Agency have no objections subject to several planning conditions that are detailed within the committee report. But that is why when you look at the principal elevation, if you'd like me to go back on the slides, but basically the fenestration doesn't lend itself to the topography, whereas the existing commercial units on Union Street do. Again, commercial units versus residential, people if they're asleep and it floods, there's going to be a problem. So in terms of that's being an issue, and in terms of the design, it's also just making sure if you start to stagger some of the fenestration, have you then got to do it on the higher levels? And it's kind of compromising as to which you should go for. So this is something that we had raised at the pre-application process. It was something also raised at the design review panel. The applicant has justified this within their updated drawings and in their covering letters. And it is the proposal that's now before you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Pentley, I noted earlier on you might have wanted to come back on something. I don't know if you want to still
No, it's been covered. Thank you, Chair. Withdraw my request. Thank you.
Anything? Councillor Tolchard?
Thank you very much, Councillor Tolchard. It's just coming back to the condition 7 details of the underbuild and the levels as well. So it's woven into the conditions as well, just to be clear.
I just wanted to have a look at the waste management plan. It's a lot of units, a lot of waste, and I think that the actual sort of storage of waste and collection of waste that fronts on, does it, to Union Street, and that's the only point, is it? So each unit of accommodation has to get their rubbish into that one unit. Is that correct?
So if I just take you to the proposed site layout, sorry, I'm having to flick through the slides a bit quickly. Actually, that one might do. So that's the landscaping plan. But on this one, if I just turn the little laser on, it's on. So for Block A, their bin storage is up in the top corner and will be collected from Union Street along here.
Right.
In terms of Block B, so the Muse style apartments, their bin storage will be actually within the external amenity spaces, so they'll be built in small pieces of built form to house bins and bicycles. The points of collection could either be from Union Street for that, or it could actually be along Albert Road. So this small section here, which is, as we've seen today, we walked along that small section of road. That's the existing kind of loading servicing area for Union Square Shopping Centre and the multi-storey car park. Okay. So there is opportunities there for collection vehicles to collect from that point too. And then, there's arrangements for Market Street for the Pannier Market, and the multi-storey could be from Albert Road, or it could be from Castle Road or above.
Thank you very much. And just going to the cycle storage, in your view, is there adequate cycle storage for the 99 units? That's quite a lot of cycles if everyone had a cycle, which we won't, I guess. But
yeah, so I think I hopefully have somewhere within those 50 odd conditions included a planning condition for bicycle storage for residential and for the commercial, because we must also think future employees and future users of the commercial units may also want to cycle to the site. So we've requested further details, but for residential flats, the development plan requires 1 bicycle storage space per accommodation. That should be easily achieved within the size of the curtilage of the application site.
Councillor Darling.
Thank you, sorry. just a quick one. It's a no car site. Obviously, how would you ensure that you kept cars off the site behind the Pannier market there? Is there anything in the design to do that?
So there's a planning condition for a road management and maintenance plan. As part of that, we could include measures such as bollards or preventative things to stop vehicles. We've got to be a bit careful because obviously emergency vehicles may want to access the site, and waste collection vehicles might also want to access the site, you know, depending where that is. So there could be the inclusion of bollards within. I think probably some of the planning conditions do ensure that that could be covered, or we could just add some wording in for bollards. But we need to make sure that not just anybody could drive their vehicle on, because that's not what the intention of this scheme is. It is meant to be car free.
I only ask because obviously it's the ward, sits within the ward I represent, and again, you get a lot of complaints about cars speeding through the town, and joyriders maybe, I don't know, going around and wouldn't want anything like that. And that brings me on to the other quick one, is about the outside space in the accommodation. Is there any security on that? Is there any the outside space?
Yeah, so in terms of the open spaces, this has also been a discussion we've had with the applicant in terms of ensuring there's defensible space, because what we don't want is other individuals along Union Street, Market Street, within the new Muse Street, to be knocking on people's windows and causing a nuisance or disturbance. So in terms of security, things like the boundary treatments and the landscaping and ensuring a suitable landscaping mix would prevent any future problems to happen. So, and there's also a planning condition too for designing out crime. So that thinks about things like CCTV, anti-terrorism, things like that, that will then feed into the scheme when they've got more detail going forwards.
Thank you.
There's also condition 22, which is on street furniture. So that again is woven into the conditions, just so you're clear.
That actually does say the word bollards in it too.
Thank you. Colleagues, any more questions? Councillor Verdi.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to cars, there could be 99 cars and 99 cycles. Is any provision being made for parking spaces, either in the car park or elsewhere?
Thank you, Councillor. So this is a car-free development. The applicant has said that it's a car-free development. Therefore, at the moment, there is no provision in the existing Union Square multi-storey car park. I have raised this on several occasions, and they have now spoken to parking services, who have said potentially a section of the car park could be allocated, reserved for the future occupiers. So as Councillor Billings has said earlier, I do highly recommend that there is a potentially the 52nd condition is for the parking strategy for the scheme in relation to making sure future occupiers could use a section of Union Square multi-storey car park. Thank you.
Thank you. So there possibly would need to be electric charging points at some point as well. Just another question, if I can find it here. Regarding the commercial areas, there's one attached to the main development, and then there's going to be some commercial area in the car park. Is that exclusively for the NHS, or are the retail units going to be considered as well?
So you're correct. Block A will have a ground floor commercial unit, and the ground and first floor of the existing multi-storey car park will provide up to 4 commercial units. It's up to 4, as per my member update earlier. In case the end occupier decides to have all 4 units, then it would obviously maybe become 1. It's not exclusively said to the NHS, and as the agent had confirmed earlier, there are discussions in place with the local healthcare system, but nothing is confirmed as of yet.
Okay, it's discussions with the local healthcare. Are there any discussions with, say, Iceland or Pound Stretcher, because they will need a large space as well?
So the committee report details that there will be a loss of retail floor space due to the removal of the Union Square shopping centre and the units along Union Street and Market Street. I'm not privy to the conversations as to who potentially will be occupying the commercial units in the future for this scheme. All I do know is that the applicant has been, well, the council has been in discussions with the existing occupiers to see if they would like to relocate elsewhere within the town centre.
Okay, thank you for that. Just finally, Dr. Horder, I think it was Dr. Horder mentioned material use for the development. Could elements of the Pannier market, i.e. like the stonework, be incorporated into the new build, so creating a harmonious design?
So there are several planning conditions relating to the materials. So as much as you see the different colour grey bricks on Block A and other use bricks on Block B, they are subject to further negotiation later in this stage when the discharge of condition application comes in. But in terms of fenestration and things like that, if things like that were to change, that would then need a different application type. But the application is as it is before you at the moment, so your decision tonight is based upon the plans submitted.
And partly around the new public realm as well, that kind of binding, the glue that binds the old and the new together. So we're quite conscious that it's the surface materials, it's the planting, it's the edges as well, linked through to the new build. So you're right to bring that up, but it's more than that. It's how it shifts that corner, I think, and how it's bound together between old and new. I think Mr. Wise has a point to raise there.
Sorry, I'll just add that we don't know really until the extent of the demolition has occurred what fabric would need to be retained to be used within the market itself to create the openings at the back. So I'd be hesitant on removing any of the fabric from the market to reuse it elsewhere in the scheme. If that was the intention, I would suggest just using matching materials, using local Devonian limestone to tie them better together, if that was the aspiration. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, not to use parts of the Pannier market to make the new build, not at all. Thank you.
I assume that's what you meant, Councillor. Any more? I've just got a few then, if I may. Page 175, condition number 48. I think there was a slight typo in there.
Yes, very well spotted, Councillor Brooke. That should say excluding instead of including on the first line, where in brackets it says including demolition, it should say excluding demolition.
My second question was looking at what Councillor Long talked about and game changes and the inference that it's not a game changer because we've gone from 250 to 99. I noted your comment. Where was it now? There we go. Reasons for going down to 102. There's like viability, market attraction, etc. Now I'm on the local plan working group, and we've been discussing this whole issue of going higher, and then we've been advised that we can't go at a certain height. I just wondered if there could be clarity, given that maybe David could give that clarity. So we're not dropping the numbers because of we're just dropping it. There's reasons why, and therefore we cannot go higher, and therefore we don't want to give an idea to the residents that we're knocking 50% odd or 60% out where we could have this 60%. Can you just clarify that, David?
Well, my understanding of it is that the main reason why it's very difficult to go more than around 5 stories or 18 metres is because of the additional fire regulations that are required. Once you go over that height, you have to provide a second stairwell, for example. So that renders higher development unviable. Obviously, members need to consider the scope for taller buildings in the town centre, but subject to the local plan considerations, that doesn't stop members approving this scheme that's before them in future. Should we confront a situation in the future whereby a higher building is acceptable? The advice from Ms Elliott's report is that this application is acceptable in planning terms. The other thing that the local plan working party does need to consider is how high is it appropriate to go for a town the size of Torbay. There is obviously a limit to how tall it would be appropriate to go in terms of urban design terms, in terms of settlement hierarchies, those types of considerations, and those probably are more for the local plan working party than for this meeting.
Thank you, David. The other thing I wanted to pick up on, can you bring up the CGI looking at the proposal at the angle? No, the next one where there we go. There, that's it. So I noted what Dr. Halder said about the neighbourhood forum members initially, when they said about the initial idea of a Stalinist design, but that there were changes have been made since then. Could you just give me a feel of the type of change or what's been there, and then as an addition to that, I think we covered, like the materials so that this can be even further changed accordingly. Thank you.
Yeah, so the design had changed. So originally the block A was mainly one colour buff brick with green panels, limited justification for the use of materials. There are a couple of examples of that use of brick on. However, it wasn't really deemed appropriate given that this is a regeneration site and we wanted something much more appealing. So the applicant had revised and has used multiple different colour bricks for block A. To the rear, it is kind of one tone. Again, the condition was included for the materials there because we just want to be sure that a dark colour, would it be appropriate? Not necessarily from a visual impact point of view, because we've got the rock face and obviously that's quite dark itself, which will open up and you'll see that within the site once the demolition's happened. But it's just to make sure we get the units are served by good levels, and obviously a lighter colour material will reflect better into rooms anyway than dark. The design has changed somewhat. In terms of also the muse style has changed slightly. There's a slight pitch to the roofs now, like a monopitch to them, but there's been not significant drastic changes. It has roughly been this height from when it originally came in. There has only been one revision to the scheme since it's come in.
Thank you. Well, if there are no more questions, colleague.
Just a quick one. Emily, looking at the commercial units attached to the main block, is there one unit there or two units there? Just on the CGI, it looks like two.
Oh, it's just one, but it's just got different openings. So the openings will be on the side fronting Union Street. The main opening will be into the public open space, and then there'll be other openings on the other side that you can't see from that CGI that are opposite the end of the block B, the Muse style properties.
All right, colleagues. No more questions? Well, I'm going to open it up to debate now. Thank you. Councillor Pannier.
Thank you, Chair, and absolutely respecting the principle that we obviously must treat this application, on the whole, in the same that we would from any applicants. We obviously do in front of us have a policy compliant application, and I can't, there is nothing in planning terms, i.e., our terms of reference as a committee that would see me voting to refuse this. But I would say, and for the record, I think I would have wanted to have something come to this committee, not just policy compliant, but policy exemplary, you know, in design, and in affordable housing provision as well. And it is very disappointing. I think the words used by Councillor Long earlier were quite accurate, where it's such a missed opportunity. But I appreciate I'm straying beyond the terms of reference of this committee, but I would just want that on record that we, as an authority, we're all elected councillors. Maybe I do feel stronger because it is my ward of Tramone, but you know, I'm quite disappointed that what we have is, like I said, something policy compliant, where really we should have had something that was policy exemplary. Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Chair. I also expressed some disappointment, and the proposed development doesn't achieve what I really want. But obviously, as Councillor Pannier said, I have to consider the application before us rather than the application I would like to have before us. And I think in its favour, I would say that it does achieve a moderately high level of housing, plus 20% affordable housing. So we have things in, or policies in accordance with the local plan. It also achieves hopefully it achieves a focal point in the gardens for social interaction. I think that's important. And the same gardens would expose the Pannier market to public view. And that in itself, I think, is a really important visual consequence of the proposal. And overall, even though I would rather have a development that's taller, that's more sustainable, that pushes the boundaries further, I do believe that it does cross the line just in achieving urban regeneration in Torquay town centre, and I would support the application and including the proposed parking strategy, i.e. condition 52. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Verdi.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to echo those sentiments from Mike Fox. I don't want to repeat them again. I like the development. It's getting rid of a total eyesore within that corner, opening up the space as well, putting some green in there, creating housing. The main thing that concerned me is because I run a business in town as well, and my shop was like an open councillor surgery for many weeks, months, and residents, shop owners came to see me saying regarding the loss of Iceland, especially for octogenarians, older people, you know, not being able to shop online. And if Iceland goes, I'm just thinking, where are they going to go? If Pound Stretcher goes, where are those people going to go? They haven't got much choice in town. And I think it's a lost opportunity to create more commercial space within the development. And at the moment there's just one unit at the front and we don't know what's going to happen at the back. So not only is that a loss of commercial units, I can't think of anywhere in town where they could move. You know, I've been racking my mind for months, if I'm honest. Where could Iceland fit? Where could Pound Stretcher fit? Nexus is going, do a grand job for the community. Are they going to find anywhere to stay? I don't think there's enough units in town to fit all of those businesses if they want to reopen. So not only would that be a loss, it's a loss of employment, loss of business rates, loss of tax, loss of economy for the town. And if people don't have work, there's no expendable wages that they can spend in town. So the knock-on effect I can see from there is the town actually declining further if none of those businesses return, and there will be less footfall within town as well. So those are my main concerns. You know, it's a bit late in the day. I don't think you can create space for those large businesses. And then you've got Mercure slots as well on the other side. Large business there as well. I can't see where they're going to fit in either. So I think certain gains, yes, housing, and lots of losses within commercial and business sense. So that's the vibe I got from the residents and the businesses locally. And I'm just worried for the elderly, really, because they were mainly, most of the people who came to my shop were the elderly, concerned about Iceland going and pound stretcher in particular. Thank you.
Councillor Strang.
I'd actually like to talk in favour of the development. I think if you walk up the high street from the harbour side and you come across that nice open space that presents you with a heritage building right in front of you, I think that's a really nice outlook as you walk up our high street. Maybe we could have squeezed some additional property in, but if light and quality of the housing isn't where it needs to be, I think we've perhaps hit an optimum. And I just think exposing that beautiful building that is there is a real nice element of this development, and so I'm fully in support of it.
Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be supporting this because, planning, it sort of ticks the boxes, but I struggle a little bit with my own conscience, really, because I do think we could have put a few more on there. But what I'm really hoping is that as this development comes to fruition, that it won't be 20% affordable housing, it'll be 80 or 90 or even 100%, and that would be really excellent. So thank you.
Councillor Tolchard.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm fully in support of this application, and I acknowledge the huge amount of work that's gone on over a considerable length of time to bring forward this proposal. And I agree with Councillor Strang that the opening up of the corner into the public space is going to be an asset, and also being able to appreciate the Pannier market from all angles, which will be, I'm sure, an absolute asset to the development. And the amount of work that's gone into considering quality of life, I think, as well, and quality of the living space for people who are going to be there, and I think that's really important. So I will be supporting this application, and thank you for all the hard work that's gone into bringing this application forward. Thank you.
Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is an extremely good application we've got before us. Having read the design and access statement and heard from previous occasions from the design team when they've done all member briefings, one of the things I think they've told us about previously was their base casing of Altrincham in terms of a Pannier market. And if you Google Altrincham and look at the images that come up, the second image when I've done it is their Pannier market. It shows a building that stands on its own, that is attractive stone facing, that has got development that is a similar height around it. It shows a flourishing town space around that market, and it really is one of the things that's showing off that part of the country. That's what I'd like for our town. And I think this is a mechanism for us to get from what is an underutilised shopping centre to a much better position that's providing much needed housing. Now, no member across the chamber wants us to be building on our green fields. We all want to try to be ensuring we find a way of navigating these government housing targets as well as we can, and delivering housing within a sustainable location such as the town centre is the best way of doing that. Would I like to have got more housing on this site than what we've got? Yes, I would. But equally, the step change where we've had the responses to Grenfell, where building above a certain height, above a certain amount of stories becomes increasingly challenging, I think that's taken that option away from us. In terms of the aesthetics of what we've got, could it have been designed slightly differently? Could it have stepped up along the high street? Yes, it possibly could, but that would no doubt have increased build costs. And whilst that would have provided something that when you viewed it from Union Street was more sympathetic, it provided heights that mirrored the stepped nature of the existing development, that would have meant that for the developer it would have been harder to have built. And as a council, we've already paid a lot of money for this. I'm sure there are viability concerns, and we're here to judge whether this is acceptable, not further refine something that could be a different development that's not the one we have before us. I think members, judging from the discussion, we've all broadly indicated support for this. I think we identified during conditions, when we were talking about questions, 2 conditions that would be sensible, and that was a condition in relation to a parking strategy and a condition in relation to stone cleaning, which would take us to a grand total of 53 conditions. And I understand officers might have suggestions about even more.
Thank you, Councillor Billings. Yeah, it's just been brought to my attention that there was conditions 5 and 14, 5 on the listed building consent, 14 on the major planning application, on the committee reports for stone cleaning, but I think it would be better served as a stone cleaning strategy, and some wording has been proposed before me that includes the sample areas be cleaned and inspected on site by the conservation officer, as well as the method of cleaning, details of proposed cleaning agents, chemicals, things like that. I think that's a much more appropriate condition than what's put in the committee report. So there wouldn't be a 53rd condition, it would stay at 52, but condition 5 on the list of building consent, 14 on the major, would be changed in line with a stone cleaning strategy.
So that's good, one less condition. So my suggestion to move your meeting on, Chair, is that I'm quite happy to propose approval, because that's the way this meeting's going on, subject to those 52 conditions and the appropriate wording. But I understand from your introduction, Chair, we've got to do this as 2 separate applications, so I'll defer to you as to how we might achieve that. But I'm quite happy to propose approval, subject to that.
There was also your pointing out of condition 48 on exclusion rather than inclusion of demolition, just so we're completely clear on the 3 different things that we're going to go through delegated subject to the decision.
I was going to say that I'm happy to second Councillor Billings' proposals, depending on the mechanics of how we process those.
Thank you, councillors. I'd like to make an observation as well. I have to say I'm extremely excited about this, and it is long overdue. I wrote down here, it's ironic, I stood for mayor 15 years ago, and I stood at that time saying that the high street of Torbay had been designed in an era before out-of-town shopping, before online shopping, and now before COVID. And COVID has affected our high street in a dramatic way, in that we don't have the workers coming into town to spend their money. They work remotely. So we've had a high street that's just been deteriorating because there's been millions and millions of pounds that was supporting it, flooding out when we had out of town, and then online, and then the workers not working in town. So if we don't do something, the deterioration just carries on. And when I look at this plan, I have to say, it's going to bring millions back in to the town centres. The housing, if it ends up being 80-20, well, that's people who've got money in their pocket who will go out and spend. The businesses, hopefully, we heard NHS. I don't know, Raj, about Iceland, but If we get like the NHS, well, that's actually workers got to work there, and then they're going to spend the money there. And if it links in with our community diagnostic centre, you're going to have a lot of the public coming into town because they got to go to the NHS and the services there, which then can put in more money. So this, as it stands, and my goodness, I'm excited about the Pannier. I didn't know about the Altrincham, but that picture, I mean, the size of the Pannier market I looked at is actually the size of the frontage of where we've got all the commercial at the moment. Boy, could that be a go-to place. Flippin' heck, if we can get that right, what's actually going to be put in there, and we don't know what it be, but that could actually be a go-to place, so that other than the Downs, you know, the harbour, which is a go-to for visitors, there's no two ways about that. But boy, if you had something else a bit higher up the high street that's a go-to as well, that could do a dramatic change. So you can tell by my voice, I'm really excited on this. The amount of work that must have gone in to get to where we are now is really phenomenal. You know, we heard earlier on, wasn't it, the other case where can it deliver quickly. Let's hope it can be. Let's hope that, you know, the spades get in the ground, the demolition happens, we get on with it, because the Bay needs it. The Bay needs this. And I think it'd be a fantastic fillip for the whole of Torquay and the Bay. So I'm massively in favour of this, I have to say. So we've got a proposer, we've got a seconder. I'm going to go to the Pannier first, if I may. The listed building.
So, Chairman, can I confirm that's 0164?
The Pannier is P 2025-0164, listed building consent.
So we've got any changes in the condition? Nothing.
So do you want to amend to it?
Yes, there will be an amendment to condition 5 on the listed building consent P 2025-0164. The wording will be revised in line with a stone cleaning strategy. Do you want me to read out the wording of that? No? Okay.
Sorry, Chairman. So was the parking strategy just for the other one then?
Correct.
So we've got a, for the listed building application, subject to this extra condition, we've got a proposer, Councillor Billing, seconder. All those in favour?
That's
unanimous. And then if we move to the main application, and then we will clarify the extra and
Would you like me to clarify, summarise? So there will be an amendment to condition 14 on P 2025-0173 for a stone cleaning sample. Stone cleaning strategy, not sample, strategy. And then condition 48, there's a slight amendment to the brackets on the first line from including demolition to excluding demolition. And then there's an additional condition, so this will be the 52nd condition for a parking strategy. And that parking strategy will be in consultation with the parking services of Torbay Council.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Chair.
Proposer? Seconder the same? All those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you very much, members. Thank you very much, officers, and everybody else who contributed. Well done, everyone. Nothing else to discuss, so I now declare the meeting closed.